Welcome to the Be More You podcast.
We're your hosts, Mon
and Stefan.
And this is a space where we want you to be more like you
and less like everyone else.
Enjoy this episode.
Yeah, I do actually. So this week we are here with Dan. Actually, what's your last name, Dan?
Koch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bro.
So this week we're here with Dan Koch. Dan owns Sacred Cacao. He's also a really good DJ, musician. He helps businesses as well.
Yeah, I do. You help businesses start business. Yeah.
You actually do a lot of really cool shit. So Dan, how are you?
Man, I'm so good. Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.
Okay. We're excited to talk to you.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you guys. Like, I've been witnessing your journey and seeing it, come to life and be born. And yeah, really excited to be sitting at this table, at this chair with you guys. Yeah.
We're excited to have you. So great intro. You did well.
Do you think so?
No, it was good. It was really good. He's learning. I'll just extend on from that.
Oh yeah, definitely extend.
Cool. So as Stefan touched on, you do a lot of cool shit. One of them being founding Sacred Cacao. I've spoken to you about this and you've told me the story about how that all started. But before we jump into the story of how you started Sacred, can you explain what cacao is? Because I remember the very first time I met you and you said you did it, I was like, this guy just likes chocolate milk. But then you started talking about it, I'm like, this guy's really passionate about chocolate milk. But then you kept going and I was like, oh, okay, there's actually a story behind like cacao and what it is and the healing powers that it has. And so do you want to actually like touch on that?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I mean, in short form, it actually is chocolate milk. But the long story is, so chocolate in its raw form is called cacao. And cacao has been considered sacred for thousands of years. The ancient Mayans used to use it as a spirit bridge. So they would have it in a mega dose, like, 45 gram dose with water. And they would use it to connect it to the divine. And the actual tree that it comes from is called the Theobroma cacao tree. And Theo and Broma literally translates the food of the gods. And so, in its raw form, chocolate is actually one of nature's most nutrient-dense superfoods. It's super high in antioxidants, which is anti-aging, magnesium, iron, calcium, and zinc. But it also contains theobromine. And theobromine is the chemical that produces happiness. So love, bliss, happiness, euphoria, all the bliss chemicals. That's what raw chocolate releases. And so when you have it in a mega dose, it actually does help you connect to the divine, opens your heart physically and spiritually. And that's why we call it sacred, because that's how it's meant to be considered. So that's what cacao really is.
It's like an elevated version of chocolate milk. No.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you stumble? Like, did you just stumble across it, or was it something that you were like consuming before you actually was like, oh, I could make something of this?
Well, yeah, I absolutely stumbled across it. So previous to doing this, I was actually a pro DJ. So I was playing at all the festival circuits, warming up for all the international DJs. Pretty much anyone in the top 100 DJ in my genre, if they came to Melbourne, I was warming up for them. And that was a very toxic lifestyle, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. A lot of fun. It was absolutely amazing. I basically got to live my childhood dream, which was awesome, and so I accomplished that. But after I, reached the top of that mountain, I realized that was it for me, and I basically came straight back down it, and put everything to the side, and packed my van, moved to Bondi, and did 3 years sobriety because I actually punished my body while I was DJing.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends who used to live in Sydney, she's like, oh, you got to go check out some of these parties. There's these like drug and alcohol free parties. And I'm like, sweet. So I went and checked one out, and I saw everyone was like huddled around this big like pot, and they were like stirring it and like serving it. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I thought this is a drug and alcohol free party. Like, what are they serving? And I asked someone like, what is it? Like, it's cacao. And similar to you guys, I'm like, what's a cacao? like what the hell is that? And then they're just like, oh yeah, it's like chocolate. I'm like, all right, so it's just chocolate. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, if you have a lot, you can get a bit of a buzz. And so me being me, you know, I'm like, well, let's test these limits. I'm having like 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups, 4 cups. Then someone actually said to me like, dude, save some for other people. You know what I mean? I didn't know anyone there, so, you know, I wasn't at any risk, but they're like, dude, save some for other people. I'm like, man, I want to see how this can go. And basically, yeah, I had like 5 cups, which is, like I said, 5 cups is like a proper dose. And yeah, I was like, shit, like, wow, I'm feeling really good. Like, this is a nice high. And yeah, from then, I actually used it as a substitute for everything. So I substitute for alcohol, for drugs, for coffee, you know, for actual chocolate, which has sugar. So I used it as a substitute for everything. So I did 3 years sobriety using cacao as my substitute. And in that 3 years, it like opened me up to my path, my purpose spiritually. Before then, I didn't really consider myself a spiritual person. And it completely like opened up my path. And so that's how I stumbled across it. Yeah.
I've got to say, like, my cacao intake has gone through the roof. I've said that to you like 5 times. Yeah. Ariel moved in. I'm just like, what? So I'm like, I don't know if I can have that much. She's like, and you know what Ariel's like? She's just like, why? She's like, because she puts like mushroom in it. She puts all these different things. She's like, it's an elixir. I fucking love the word elixir. And so I'm like, okay, but I went through a time period of drinking coffee again and then stopping. I didn't drink it for a couple of years and I went back and then I stopped drinking it again. I've got to say, there was a few mornings I didn't have much sleep. I haven't had 5 cups of cacao before, one after the other. But I had a strong cup of ceremonial cacao at 6 a.m. and I taught the best class of yoga I think I've ever taught before in my life. And I was like, I get it. I was like, I understand. This is like, I never understood, like, I think because I was always so over caffeinated and I took so many drugs as well. I was like, how the fuck can chocolate milk make you feel anything? And I was wrong. Like, it definitely does. And like I said, I've never done a full, like, I suppose, proper ceremonial dose the way that you said. Yeah. That's how all of your flavors are.
Well, not necessarily. So we have 4 flavors, and the way that I wanted to do it is because I wanted to make something for everybody. In the cacao business, there's either cacao businesses that are just purely ceremonial and nothing else, or it's like hot chocolate, which is cacao, just the powder sweetened with sugar, 50-50 sugar. So we wanted to create something that's down the middle, something that both sides could come to. So, you know, the kids and the mums and dads can come and enjoy the flavor, but also the people who use it for spiritual purposes can come and use it for that. And so we have 4 flavors. We have Earth, Fire, Love, Vitality, which represents all the elements, and we have Ceremony, which represents spirit. But all of those flavors, they're sweetened with superfoods, so there's no refined sugar. So it still has all the maximum health benefits, but minus all the sugar. So it makes it still good for you. Because there's no point having nature's most nutrient-dense superfood and then mixing it with 50 to 70% sugar. That makes no sense. But then there's the ceremonial aspect, which is 100% pure ceremonial grade cacao. And so when we do ceremonies, you just have just that with water, and you have about 35 to 45 gram dose. You sit, you have it, you meditate, you dance, you journal, whatever you do, because you're in your heart space. So we save ceremony for special occasions, but then the other flavors, which is just the powder form, you can have that every day in your food, you know, in your smoothie or whatever. So, but when we do our parties, like, we have all 4 flavors on display plus ceremonial. And so generally people will come in and they'll have earth, then they'll have fire, then they'll have love and vitality. They'll have all the flavors, and each flavor has a different element, different component, different ingredients, and each ingredient has a different effect on the body. But by the time you've completed all 4 or 5 of those, you know, servings, you're pretty high. You're pretty up there, which is pretty cool. But it's interesting to see, like, you know, that you had your best yoga, like, you know, you taught your best yoga class on it, because what it does is it drops you out of your head and straight into your heart. And so whatever you're doing, you're gonna like really embody that and be super present.
I definitely was. I was super present. And it was 6 a.m. so I know it was my only 6 a.m. class a week. I'm not actually teaching it anymore. So I always found it really hard to be present with that class, just because it was the only one of its kind every week for me. So every other class was in the evening, and then once a week I'd get up at 5 a.m. to just teach at 6, and I just had trouble with it. I think it was the last week I actually did it, or maybe the second last week I did it. And yeah, it was ceremonial grade, and I remember finishing the class being like, what just happened? And it was such a flip, because I was like going to the class, I was really tired too, I didn't sleep much. I was like, fuck, I'm in trouble here. So these people, what they did, 6 a.m. I've got to perform. I have to teach you a good
perform.
class.
Yeah,
I've
you
got
got
to
to
perform,
perform.
man.
Absolutely.
People getting out of bed.
Yeah.
And then, I was shocked. Like, fuck. Oh, we all did great. How'd everybody go? Yeah.
Well, that's what we feel like we're doing. So, in terms of sacred, like it is a plant medicine, and there's heaps of plant medicines. There's like psilocybin, ayahuasca, peyote. There's like so many different medicines that you can use. But for me, cacao is also, it's like a mother plant, and it's a carrier medicine. So cacao is also a vasodilator. So whatever you put with it, your body's going to receive more of it. It opens up your blood vessels, pumps oxygen around your body. So if you put your medicinal mushrooms with it, if you put other supplements or ingredients with it, your body's going to receive more of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, it's such a beautiful medicine to integrate into your daily life, because it is something that can tap you into your heart space and allow you to perform at your highest potential, you know, from your heart. And so that's why we're bringing it out to the world. Like, there's an ancient Mayan legend that states that whenever there's an imbalance between humans and nature, cacao makes its way out of the jungle to open our hearts and restore the planet to a state of harmony.
Yes.
And that's our ethos. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. Like, we feel like the earth is in a state of disharmony because we ourselves are in a state of disharmony. And as soon as we're all into our heart space and we're connected to ourselves, to each other, to Mother Nature, how can we harm her? How can we harm others?
Yes.
And so it's super important for us to drop into that space. And cacao is a great, gentle reminder of how to do that.
Absolutely. And the whole plant medicine thing, because I know you and Errol and yourself went into ceremony last year.
Well, it was this year,
mate.
Yeah.
Early this year. Fuck, it feels like 2 years ago.
I know, man. Lots happened.
But something that I spoke about, would be 2 or 3 podcasts ago, I've been really struggling. Like, I'll rephrase that. I had a meltdown probably like 3 weeks ago because all these people kept popping in my life with plant medicine, like with plant medicines. And I was like, I've had a lot of trouble just differentiating the difference between a substance and a medicine. Like, logically, I fully know. But because just using them in a negative way in my past, I've had trouble differentiating the two. I was just curious, is that something that you ever went through? And how do you approach, if you don't mind talking about this actually, how do you approach plant medicines now? Because like, you had that really hectic lifestyle where you used a lot of drugs. Yeah. And now I know that you've used plant medicines in a really positive way. Like cacao, you're basically a drug dealer.
Basically, I am, man. A legalized drug dealer, man. Absolutely. Damn, man, you're onto me. No, it's a really interesting question. Like, when I was in my DJ career, it was all different types of other substances, like MDMA, like everything else, cocaine, everything else. Yeah. So those are a bit more, synthetic. You know what I mean? Yeah. But still, there is a use for them as well. Yeah. And I never really dabbled with any plant medicines while I was DJing. It was only after I finished DJing and I was in that transition, I'm like, what do I want to do next? That I started to like experiment and explore and started to try other things. And so even though I say I did 3 years sobriety, in those 3 years of sobriety, I did multiple things. I sat Vipassana, I did 10 days of meditation. I sat ayahuasca maybe two or three times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did Kambo, and I did a whole range of different plant medicines. And for me, there's a differentiation between drug taking and plant medicine. And for me, it's not necessarily the substance. Obviously, there are substances that are highly toxic, synthetic, not good for the body, not that great for the mind. Yep. But then there are others which are good for the mind, like medicinal, like mushrooms, like ayahuasca. All of these kind of plant medicines are really good for resetting the mind, and actually are really good for drug addiction. Because I feel like drug addiction is not necessarily an addiction to the substance itself. It's to like that lack of connection, or there's something that's missing, or a gap that needs to be filled, or some sort of escapism. And so for me, there was a very clear-cut transition between like drug taking and then being on a spiritual path, being 3 years of sobriety, but then also, using plant medicine as a tool in a ceremonial setting to achieve a certain outcome, which was basically to go to school, to learn about myself, to understand myself better, my history, my past, just so I can create a better present and a more compelling future. And so for me, it's all about, people, place, setting, intention. Of course. And so now, even if I do dabble in some of the other substances that I used to use, that can still be used in a ceremonial way to create a really desirable outcome, which is, for instance, like MDMA and ketamine is now being used
I
to
know, yeah.
treat, you know,
PTSD.
PTSD,
Yeah.
exactly. It's great for like couples therapy and things like
Yeah.
that as well. And so it's really about the intention that it's used for. And I think that's the most important thing, because you can take some of those substances and use it for partying purposes, or you can take it and use it for medicinal purposes, and vice versa. Like, I've never taken mushies in a setting that is like for party.
Yeah.
It's always been a ceremonial setting, but I know people that be like, "Nah, we're gonna take it in a."
Dude. Yeah, no. It was like the start of this year was the first time I ever actually used psilocybin or had mushrooms in a setting that wasn't a party. And we used to get garbage bags full. We used to walk out of the woods just going, "Oh, we're gonna have a good few months."
Yeah, it's just like Santa, bro.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I know. But no, I think it's a really, really important conversation. It's been a really interesting transition just for me personally, because I'm like just listening to what happens within me, because I'm like, I know better than this. Like, I know, I've listened to so many podcasts, listened to people talk about going to ceremony, listened to the doctors who are actually using MDMA and are using ketamine in therapeutic settings, and how much they're bypassing, or not bypassing, how much they're able to move through in such a short amount of time. But it's just a really weird perspective for me, coming from a place where I'm like, I fucking abused anything I could touch. Like, any substance that I could get my hands on, it didn't matter if it was a plant medicine or anything. So I think it's such an important conversation, because as you just said, all of those things, they have such an incredible use with the right setting and intention. Of
course, yeah.
But it's like actually knowing where and how to create that setting and intention and get a really good outcome from it.
Absolutely, man. And it goes back to even saying, for example, like, you guys are familiar with cacao or chocolate as in its current form, which has been ultra heat treated, devoid of all its nutrients, devoid of all its vitality, devoid of all of its like spiritual content, mixed with sugar and dairy, you know. So that's common throughout all the sacred plant medicines. Tobacco is also a sacred plant medicine. Even the coca leaf, used as cocaine now, is like one of the most like spiritual plants. And all of these spiritual plants have been taken and adulterated and turned into these highly addictive substances without the benefits, whether it's the health benefit or the spiritual benefit. But most of them have all been taken and been abused that way, and then it makes it easier for the actual consumer to abuse it that way too. So when you lose that ceremonial aspect, or the reason for why you're taking, like, why do people go out and take drugs or party? You know, they go out because they want to connect. They want to connect to people. Some people don't feel confident in who they are, or confident enough in themselves to be sober and go to to meet random people. So they'll have alcohol, which reduces your inhibitions and brings down your walls, but also makes you sloppy. You lose your inhibitions and things like that, and you get to connect because you have more confidence, but you actually don't remember the conversation the next day. You don't remember the person's name. What I love about cacao is cacao doesn't reduce your inhibitions. It actually, or reduce your walls or your barriers to connection. It actually raises your vibration over the walls. And so when you have a whole group of people or a whole party that are all collectively raising their vibration over their walls, so they're transcending their barriers, all of a sudden you're connecting at a higher frequency. You're actually getting that which you initially desired, which is that connection. Real connection. Not this like, oh, let's like be sloppy and break down our walls and make a mess of myself connection. It's like real, like high level connection. And every time we've thrown, that's how we started. We started throwing cacao parties. And
I was gonna say, sorry. But like, my next question after the whole Explain Cacao was, how did this come about? we forgot to mention that you've actually started your own bloody company. And it's like a global company?
Yeah, it's global now. Yeah, we're international, which is pretty cool. And we're getting
I hate cutting people off, but I'm like, we haven't even mentioned.
Well, yeah, so
you
all right.
Bondi? You tried cacao?
Well, when in the transition of me quitting, so I was at the heart of my career. I just warmed up for Above and Beyond. Above and Beyond in the trance field is my favorite act in the world. They're the top 500, top 5 DJs in the world. They're a trance trio. all of their music back then, I didn't really know it, but now looking back, I'm like, man, their music is super conscious. They have a podcast called Group Therapy, where that's actually their trance show where they play all the music. All the lyrics are like super conscious. People are coming together. Like I met like my partner that I was with for 5 years during that time at one of their concerts. Like that's people just come together because they're doing the same thing I just said before. They're raising people's vibration with music. Yeah. Also the substances are also helping, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know, that's how that happened. And so I got to warm up for my favorite act, Above and Beyond, High Sense Arena, sold out show, 7,500 people, man, in Melbourne. And here I am, I'm like, oh my God, like, this is my childhood dream. Like, holy shit, like this is going down.
Yeah.
I had all my friends came, like it was a 5-year journey of DJing. All my friends came and they were all wearing my t-shirt and they knew that this was like the most important gig for me. And so I got there, I played my set, it was absolutely incredible. I went behind the stage, I met the DJs, and every time I meet an international DJ, I didn't really care. I'm like, you're a human being, I'm a human being, you're doing cool shit, I'm doing cool shit, like how you doing, you know? Yeah. But when I met them, I was just like, couldn't speak. I was just like, and my manager was like, Dan, like say something. I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, we met because of you, you know, like, you know, this was amazing. And it was everything, it was really beautiful. And to share probably the best highlight of that career for me is I played my set, I got to meet them, I was in the crowd and there was like, I was actually in the stands, so we just stand in the stands watching the show. There's maybe like, I don't know, 50, 100 people of my friends all around me. And then halfway through their set, they dropped my favorite track. It's called On a Good Day. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine, like, that track goes, it feels like me on a good day. And it's basically about going for your dreams, achieving it, making it.
I'm shit is what you're saying.
This is what I'm saying. Story. Exactly. So I'm in the stands. They drop On a Good Day. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I take out my phone. I start filming. And they have the ability to write stuff on their laptop, messages, and it goes up on the big screen. So here I am filming this. You know, I'm playing at this show. This is like the most nostalgic moment. It's just so ridiculous, right? And they're dropping my track, the lyrics are playing, I'm filming it, and basically it says, you know, this lyrics are, it feels like me on a good day, and then they start writing on the big screen that said, it's moments like these that make the difference in life. It feels like me on a good day. We'd like to thank our warm-up DJ, D-A-N. And as they're typing my name, all of a sudden, all my friends and the crowd around me are like, oh my God, and everyone's just like stacks on. And like, oh my God, you did it, we did it. Like tears coming down, I dropped the phone, everything. So that was like a super beautiful moment. That was like the highest high of my career, ever. And straight after that, I was like, there is no high in this arena that I can chase that's better than that. And so I was like, straight away, I came down from that mountain. That next day I was driving home, I was just reminiscing on the whole career, and I was just like, I messaged everybody and I just said, thanks so much, you know, for being a part of the journey. You know, you guys are all different parts of it. I couldn't have made it without you. Thank you all for being a part of this moment. And I actually called it the next day. I'm like, that is the top of the mountain for me, guys. And so thank you very much. But like, I'm gonna come down the mountain from here. And all my friends were like, man, are you crazy? Like, dude, this is nuts. And it took me a year to transition. And the last gig I ever played was at Stereosonic. I remember it was actually the first 2-day event they did in Melbourne. And I thought, cool, people will go easy the first night and go hard the second night. Nah, man, everyone went hard the first night, even harder the second night. Yeah. And I remember I was opening the Trance Arena at Stereo on the second day, and I was so tired myself, man. Like, I was so blitzed. Yeah. I played Deep House in the Trance Arena because I was just so tired, man. I was just like, man. And I was meant to play the after party before this other artist named Andrew Rayul, and I started playing for him. And I remember, like before I went to play for him, I was meant to play back to back with someone. My boss texted me. He's like, "Dude, you have to play the whole set by yourself because the other guy can't make it because he's fucked." And I'm like, man, I'm about the same thing. But in the crowd, I watched everyone at Stereo, and I just watched everyone party. I watched all the drugs. I watched all the abuse. I watched people fight, punch on, this and that. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be an ambassador for this anymore. You know, like, who's winning here? There's, you know, there's thousands of kids coming and abusing their bodies, abusing their minds, abusing the planet. For what? For just a moment in time that you're gonna forget? Like, I'm like, don't worry about it. And basically, yeah, when my boss told me that my mate couldn't come and play, I was like, I just put a message out to everyone. I said, man, if you guys want to see me play again, come tonight. It's the last gig I'm ever gonna do. Really? Yeah, man. I went and I played that set, and I remember I played the set, and I dropped my last track. And as a warm-up DJ, you can't drop anything popular. I have to drop only like tracks that really no one knows, but you have to create a vibe but not go too high as well, because it's trance music. And I remember I dropped this track. Little did I know the track's name is called We Evolve, and it's by an artist called Sequel. And I was like, okay, cool, that's pretty fitting. Dropped that track, unplugged my stuff, this other DJ plugged in his stuff, and the track like went down, and then as soon as it kicked in, the whole crowd just erupted. Like it was like the perfect track to drop at the time, that the artist was like, the international, he actually pulled out his headphones, he's like, go one more. He's like, and so I'm like, shit. So I put in my headphones and I'm like, man, I got no time to do anything, so I literally just pressed play, mixed it straight away, and actually the next song was Above and Beyond, Sun and Moon, which was the most popular track of the whole year. And then he's like, oh my god, what are you doing? I'm like, bro, what did you expect me to do? I have no idea. And he's like, man, that was my opening track. He's like, what do I do? I'm like, don't worry, bro, like I'll mix it for you, man. I mix it for you, knowing full well that my manager is gonna be like, Dan, you are done, like you should have, like that's it. But I didn't care because I knew I was finished. But that's how that career and that path ended. As soon as that ended, I started another business. I basically lost my job. I was building a house. I got wiped out overnight. I lost 30 grand worth of income. I lost the house that I was building. I basically was wiped out overnight, and I was forced to move into a van. And basically that's when I left. I just left everything and I went to Bondi. And in Bondi, actually, when I went to Bondi, I was like, nah, I'm not going to DJ again. I became a gardener. I actually started a business called Grow Space. I taught people how to grow their own food using less space and minimal effort.
No way!
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, like actually it was like, I'm like, that's it. I'm done with DJing. I'm going to connect back to the earth, and I'm going to like, you know, and I literally started an urban gardening business. We did like rooftop gardens, courtyard gardens, like so much shit, man.
Dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. And here I am. I'm living on Bondi Beach, man, in a van on Bondi Beach. Literally, for me, the best beach in the world, right?
Yeah.
People are paying millions of dollars to live in these apartments behind me, and I've got a better view than they do because I'm actually on the beach, running my own business called Grow Space from it, and then got really well acquainted with cacao. And after a while, like I was just drinking it every day, using it every day. And then when I went to Bondi, I didn't tell anybody who I was because I actually erased my identity. And all my friends from Melbourne are like, are you crazy? Like, dude, everyone would kill to be in your position. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Cut it, left. When I got to Bondi, I didn't tell anyone that I was who I was. I deleted my Facebook, everything. I was a ghost. And I went to Bondi and I just recreated myself. And then all of a sudden, like maybe, I don't know, 6 months or 9 months in, one of my mates, he's like, bro, I just Googled you. And I see that you're a big time DJ, bro. I see that you play pro. He's like, you play with Above and Beyond, play with like Cosmic Gate, W&W. He's like, man, like what happened? I told him the story. He's like, bro, man, I'm thinking about throwing a cacao party. He's like, do you want to DJ? I'm like, nah, bro, I'm done with DJing. But I'll tell you what, I'll help you throw the party because I know how to throw parties. Yeah. And so I helped him throw the party. I set it up for him, and like we did it together, gave him the ideas. And then we served the cacao and it was amazing. And then like he's like trying to get me on the decks. I'm like, nah. And he's like, mate, jump on the decks. I'm like, nah. He's like, bro, I'm busting to go to the toilet. Please jump on the decks. And so I grabbed my keys out. I have like all my music on a keychain. I chucked it in. I just started playing. 10 minutes later, he didn't come back. 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I'm like, where is this guy? Half an hour later, man, 40 minutes later, I see him. He's in the crowd. And he's like, yeah. But the whole crowd is like going off. The whole crowd is with me on the journey. And trance is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like R&B and like, you know, hip hop, it's all about getting into groups and dancing with each other. House is, you know, it's a bit different, but trance is like, it's like you and the crowd. It's the crowd and the DJ. You're on a collective voyage going to everyone's facing the same direction, and we're all going to the same destination. And I didn't think that I could get people to those heightened states of consciousness or create that experience without substances. But when we threw that cacao party and we went on that journey, man, I played for 3 hours that night, and everybody's with me from start to finish. And then when we finished, he's come up to me, he's like, man, he's like, bro, did you enjoy that? And I'm like, yeah, bro, I did. He's like, all right, are you in? I'm like, all right, man, I'm in. Let's go. And so it was beautiful because I did my 3 years sobriety, and I thought DJing in that world was done. But then I just took the best of that world, and then we actually started creating our own flavors, and we started doing more cacao parties. We have these parties called Awaken that we throw in Bondi every full moon. 200 people would come. We do ceremony, and then I play music, and we just go we would go to the moon and back. But it was really cool because I got to mix like the world of my DJing, which is what I loved and my passion, with my passion for well-being. And now with the parties that we do, it's a party with purpose. Like we donate everything back to the land, so we protect acres of Amazon rainforest and things like that. So now it's combining all three of my passions: music, wellness with cacao, getting high as well naturally, and protecting the planet. So that's what we do. That's how Sacred started.
It's really crazy because it's like the perfect example of how like you can have the best of all worlds. I think nowadays we get told constantly that we need to pick one thing, stick to that one thing, and that's the thing. And then if you derive or you go off that path, you're either just giving up. But it's like, it's not. Like, maybe the person I was 3 years ago wanting this thing back then is not the person I am now wanting this new thing. But I can still take elements of that thing that I really loved and enjoyed and apply it to whatever this new thing that it is that I'm doing.
Absolutely, totally agree. And that's what I've loved about it. Like, when I actually left DJing, I'm so extreme. I'm an extreme. Like, when I was taking drugs, I was extreme. And then I went 3 years sobriety. I'm like, man, I'm not even gonna have a drop of tap water. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, and like, that's how extreme I was, man. You know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
I'm like, so extreme. You know, like, I'm coming to the middle now, you know, like a pendulum swing. But I was like, nah, I'm done with DJing. Like, I gave it all up, everything like that. And I'm like, I actually, literally, in my body, I was like, no. And even when my art friend offered me to play, like, even though I loved it, I was like, no. It was like really traumatic to think about, like, how much, because I used to DJ, and for me it was business and my passion. So I would invite people to come with me. 100 people would come and watch me play. I'd play, I'd have fun, I would go home because it's business for me, and then they would kick on, and then I would see them, you know, they break up with their girlfriend, they lose their job, and I could see, hey, like, I'm creating this. If I didn't invite them, they may not come. Sure, they may go do it somewhere else and still do it, but I don't want to be an advocate for this. I want to, like, lead people down a different path. And so I thought I associated DJing with that. But now it's so beautiful, like you said, to take a part of that and mix it with a bit of this, and, you know, take that ingredient and put it all together. Like, I love nature, I love music, I love cacao, I love, like, enhancing our experience using our 5 senses. So it's sight, you know, sound, taste, touch, smell, whatever. I love all of that. And now with the cacao parties that we do, I get to create those experiences in nature, with, like, incense, you know, with cacao, with music, with elixirs, with connection, you know, with fire, with the elements. It's so beautiful. And so now, like, you know, I'm really in my element. And even though I actually started Sacred, like, I didn't start Sacred by myself. I actually started it for my ex-partner, who, she had a cafe. She was running 2 successful businesses. Well, they were seemingly successful until, unfortunately, they both went bankrupt. And then but she was actually a star. She actually was an amazing chef. And so when the concept came to me about Sacred and doing this, like, she made the flavors and she ran a business for a bit, but it wasn't doing too well. And it was only until we got invited to go to a festival, we got invited to go to Lost Paradise Festival. They said, do you want to do a stall there? I'm like, and I'm me again, like I said, I'm extreme. I'm like, we'll do a stall, but not a stall. Like, we'll get a full TP, full DJ setup, mad bar. Like, we'll create a Sacred Cacao bar. And that's when that was born. And we were actually at that festival, thousands of people, and we were the only drug and alcohol free space, but with music. And people would, I remember the first night we played, that was actually the first night I properly DJ'd. Like, and when I mean DJ, I didn't just play old music, I actually downloaded 200 new tracks. And DJing is not just about playing music, it's about all the tracks that you collect and store and use. It's about telling a story. And so that was the first night I actually downloaded new tracks, and I'm like, all right, sweet. I hadn't played properly for years, and I played that night. And I remember, like, we got a massive, like, encore set. Like, people begged us to keep playing, and then I ended up playing. I was supposed to have 7 DJs come to that festival, and then the owner's like, you can't have 7 DJs, you can't have 7 tickets, like, you get 1 ticket. Like, that's it. And so my mate was already there, but he was leaving that night, and so he played till 8:30, and he's like, oh bro, I gotta go. I'm like, shit. So then I jumped on and I took over, and then we played all the way through the night, and then I ended up playing like 4 days straight, 12 hours a day. But then on New Year's Eve, I played from 9 a.m. till 3 a.m. the next day. I played like 18 hours straight, and everyone was there just vibing and loving it, and I was like, holy shit, like, this is amazing. And that's when I knew we had something. Like, the whole festival, each stage was shutting down, and we were still going, and people were like, man, this guy, like, I saw this guy DJing when I was getting my smoothie in the morning, and now DJing, you know. And everyone's like, what is this guy on, man?
Like,
and it's like, it's cacao, that's it. And then after that, like, the chai tent, who is, like, they're renowned for being at all the festivals, they actually came over and they said, you know, guys, we watched you from across the way. That was epic. They're like, how do you feel about coming to Rainbow Serpent with us in 3 weeks? And we were like, hell yeah. And then they got us into Rainbow Serpent. We did that. And then the same thing happened at Rainbow. And then from Rainbow, all the customers were like, when are you going to throw your own party? When are you going to throw your own party? And I didn't want to. I was so resistant. I was like, man, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. Like, da-da-da-da. And then basically they begged us, and then we threw our first party. it sold out. He sold out like 150 tickets, and then that's when this was really born. Like that's when I'm like, all right, cool. Like we really do have something here, something that I love to do, something that the crowd really wants, and I think that the world needs. And then so we started delivering it to market.
Yeah. You're fucking wild, dude. Seriously. And like, I've experienced it twice. Like, Kindred event that we did. I remember going to that. I was really nervous. I rocked up really late and everyone was looking at me. They're like, oh, Stefan's here. I'm like, we had this, the ceremony at the start, and then Lily played the bowls while they did meditation. I did a bit of flow. Then you DJ'd. And I've never experienced being completely sober before. I was quite nervous because the funny thing is, whenever I used to take drugs and go out, I wouldn't dance and stuff anyway. I was too fucking high. I'd be like too alert. But we had cacao, and then we danced for hours that night. It was incredible, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced something like that.
Yeah, I think that's the most beautiful thing. When I did that first party, I remember I played my music, we did that, we got off the decks, and what I wanted to create was actual bar mimicry. Yeah. So I wanted to create the atmosphere of a bar. So we was on Chapel Street. Yes. And so like you wouldn't expect like a spiritual thing, and we didn't want to make it spiritual. Like let me mimic a bar. Yes. So you walk in, you dress nice, you feel good, you walk up to the bar, you line up, you go there, you order, and there's like 4 elixirs, 4 cacaos, and it's like, oh, which one do I get? And you get it, and it's like got this taste. So everything's the same, the music's the same, everything, just the substance is different. Yes. And the beautiful thing was, remember when I got off the decks, I was walking to the bar, and like 3 people stopped me, and all 3 people said the exact same 3 thing in the exact same sequence. Like, man, I've had the best time, I've had the best conversations, and I feel so good. Yeah. That's what all 3 said, and I was like, whoa, that's hectic. Because I used to remember when I used to party, I'd be partying, I'd be like, a few deep, absolutely loving my life, and then there would always be this point in time in the night, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Yeah. Why am I doing this? Like, man, I'm going to regret this tomorrow. Like, this is going to hurt. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, what have I done to my body? What about, look at the rubbish around, look at this. And I'm like, man, this is not good, Yes. Like, what have we done? That would always happen. And then that night when we did that party, like I said, we're a party with a purpose now. So what we did was, at the bar, you tap your card, and whatever you order will go to a cloud that then gets put onto a projector, and that projector's going onto the wall with the world spinning, and then there's a tally that says number of acres of rainforest saved. Yeah. Right? And every time someone pays a drink, that tally goes up and up and up. But we never told anybody because we don't want that to be like a marketing tool. It's just like, we're just going to do this anyway. Yeah. So only halfway through the night, people are tapping it, and they come up to me like, bro, every time I tap my card and buy a drink, that tally goes up. Are you telling me that every drink I buy protects an acre of Amazon rainforest? I'm like, yeah, bro. They're like, what? Right, round on me, $100 rounds, this, that, and all of a sudden, man, we actually protected 1,200 acres of Amazon rainforest in one night.
What? Guys, I've been shivering up my spine for like, how long have we been talking? Because it's like every couple of minutes it just goes, it's just, you do some incredible shit.
Cheers, do you know what I love? It's all just, everything you do stems from that place of like just passion, like you're doing it just because you love it. And then the added intention of helping, like someone or obviously something being the planet. Like, it's the perfect formula for success.
Well, I guess so, yeah. I haven't really thought about it like that, but yeah.
No, but it is. Like, people...
It is, I guess. Well, it seems to be working.
But, like, people, like, I always think about people that ask me, like, oh, I need to find my passion, my purpose, whatever. And they've got this like derived image in their head of what success looks like. But it's like you combine those 2 things of finding just your passion, and for it to be able to help somebody else or inspire somebody else, that's the golden ticket. That is literally the golden ticket. The trouble is finding what is that thing and not telling yourself that it can only be one thing.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you bring that up, because in this moment, as you're saying, I'm trying to like psychoanalyze and think, oh, okay, cool. Like, what is the formula? Like, why am I doing this? How is this? And this is not something that I really wanted to do. It's not something that I really want to be doing. I'm enjoying it. I love it, yes. But to be honest, I'd rather just be chilling under a palm tree, drinking a coconut, like watching the ocean, watching the waves rolling, you know what I mean? But I think the reason why I do it is because of service. Yeah. I see a need, and I see something lacking, and if I can see a gap that can fill it, and I can do it. And I think you're right. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's like, what's my purpose, this and that. But when I observe nature, like I see in nature, like everything in nature serves a purpose. And that purpose is to serve something else. Like the air doesn't breathe itself, water doesn't drink itself. Everything in nature serves a purpose, and that purpose is to serve something other than yourself. Humans, I feel, are the only thing in nature that doesn't serve another purpose. Right? So this is our playground. We are the fruits of this planet. And so I feel that our purpose is to find out what our gifts are. And I say gifts, you know, with an S, because there are multiple gifts, not just one. Find out what our gifts are, and then our purpose of our life, or the meaning of our life, is to give those gifts away. And so one of my gifts is music, and I'm so glad I didn't just let it go. I'm so glad I get to be able to give it away now. Another gift is I am very good at creating these experiences for people and giving people shivers like that. You know, like I'm doing it with my words now, but when I do it with an experience, an immersion, it's like, whoa, and we all just go, you know, I do ceremonies now. We host ceremonies, we do sound healings, we do a whole bunch of other stuff. And so I feel like that's where people get caught up. It's like they think about what they want to do, you know, not it's like, well, what does the world need, and what do I have that
what do you bring to the table?
Exactly. You know, like a bee's not going to start behaving any differently. A bee's going to do what a bee does, you know, because that bee serves a purpose. And so similar to us, like us humans, we can do anything we really want, but what does the world need, and how can we fill that gap? Because that is going to be total fulfillment, in my opinion anyway.
With that.
You know, it's similar to what you guys are doing here. Like what you guys are doing, the reason why I'm so attracted to it is because you guys are actually, in my opinion, there was a massive gap, and you guys are so beautifully and with so much heart filling that gap. I'm like, man, I want to be a part of this. Like, you know what I mean? I want to get into this thing.
Well, you are, whether you like
know
it or not. So.
Exactly. So, and I think that's beautiful, because when we serve something other than ourselves and serve others first, then, you know, we receive so much more in return. You know, I've never really done this for myself. You know, I'm not sitting there doing this for myself. Or like even I said, like when I was DJing, like if I was, you know, wanted to do something for myself, I would have kept going. You know, and that was the thing. Like even when I reached my goals at DJing, I actually got to the top, and I was like, whoa. Like I felt fulfilled for a minute, and then I was like, whoa, like I'm feeling really unfulfilled now. And I'm like, well, whose goal was this? Whose idea was this? I'm like, yeah, it was my idea, but it was also all my friends while we were partying, taking drugs. They're like, Dan, you're a better DJ than this guy. You're going to be up there soon. Yeah. And all my friends like, you're going to be up there. You're going to be up there. I'm like, well, better not let him down, hey. You know? And so I went up there and I did it. But at the end of the day, I was like, wow, this wasn't, although it was a dream of mine, yes, it's like, it's not the whole dream. There is so much more I want to do on this planet. There's so much more I feel like I'm here to do on this planet. And one of those things is to protect the planet. Since a very young age, I've always loved the planet. I've loved nature, and I want to conserve it. And, you know, I'm a very big believer in, you know, protecting Mother Nature and our resources, you know. So that's why with Sacred, you know, that's why we call it Sacred, because first of all, it's a sacred plant from the Amazon. But like I said, that ancient Mayan legend is to restore the planet to a state of harmony. And so with whatever we do, we want to be able to give back, to protect what is sacred. So to protect Mother Nature, to protect virgin rainforests, but also to help people connect to nature as well, which is why I started Grow Space, my other business, because when people would work with plants and grow their own plants, they're like, man, what, it takes this long to grow an eggplant? Like, oh my God, like next time they see an eggplant on their plate, they're like, man, I'm not going to waste that. That took like 6 to 8 weeks to grow. Like, no way, you know, and then they connect to nature more. And that's what I feel creates a lot of disharmony in this world. It's just our disconnection. We're such a interconnected species, you know, and we have all this technology, but we're so disconnected. Yeah. And so I feel like connection is like the first and foremost thing that we need to address. Connection to ourselves, to the planet, to our purpose, to each other. And that's what I feel that Sacred does. That's what I feel that this medicine does. It really does help you do that. It's helped me do that. And so many other people and our customers and our friends and affiliates who have enjoyed it have also had the same experience.
How did you, because like just from a business point of view, but like how did you go about the whole process of actually starting it in terms of like sourcing? Because
I was about to ask this. No, because I've heard the story of how you actually got the cacao. Yeah. And it's like a movie.
Oh, that's another 2-hour reel documentary. Yeah, like I can give you the shortened version, but that is another episode.
That's coming out
like
in 2024 on Netflix.
So how did I go about sourcing it? So when we started, we were actually sourcing it from Australia, just like to play with it and understand it. But I remember after my second party, we realized, okay, cool, we really do have something here, like, let's go for it. And because we want to be as authentic as possible, it's like, all right, well, I need to go to the source and figure out where it is. And so I was getting ready to go to the source, but I actually at the venue we did 2 events at a venue called at Ella Street, and at that venue there was a manager that I actually fell in love with, and she actually went to South America, and she invited me over, and she's like, come over. She's like, if you want to come over, like, you know, I'll go into the jungle with you. And I was like, sweet. I'm like, I'm all in. I'm gonna fly over there. We're gonna go into the jungle. We're gonna have this epic time. And so I flew over there, and I'm like, sweet. We'll go source the cacao. We'll have this experience, whatnot. Anyway, I got over there, and it was a no deal. She's like, nah. Her parents are like, there's no way you're going to this jungle with this strange man, like that, blah 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 blah. So she bounced out. And then I was there in Peru by myself, and so I was like, all right, sweet, like, I'm here, I've made the journey over, like, now I need to work my way around here. And I had 3 weeks to do it, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go, what part of the forest. I wanted to go direct to the source of where cacao originated. And so where we get our cacao from is literally in the heart of the Amazon basin, and that is the actual source, like the birthplace of cacao. Everywhere else, it's like it's been taken from that place. And then, so cacao grows 20 degrees north and south of the equator. So it gets like maximum sunlight, maximum prana, which makes it why it's such a high frequency food. It's like cacao is actually one of the highest frequency foods. And so, yeah, so I went on this, pretty much this expedition I needed to find 2 translators, because the place where we get it from, they're like one of the oldest tribes that still live in the jungle. And they're the Ashaninka tribe. And so I needed to find a translator to translate from English to Spanish and Spanish to Ashaninka.
Oh, God.
And so I literally went on a pilgrimage around Peru, like trying to find myself. Like I went there for love. Like that's the thing. Like love pretty much made me start this business. I started it for my ex-partner. Like I started for her out of love. And then like when you say what made you go to Peru, it was literally for love, and love made me do it. And cacao is the medicine of the heart. So it's like, it's, you know, pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty ironic. And so anyway, I get there, and then the woman that I love just leaves. So I'm by myself. I'm like, well, all right, I better go on my own journey. And yeah, I pretty much just traveled around Peru, like went to Machu Picchu and tried to find all these different translators, spoke to the locals, and they're like, man, you want to go into this jungle? Like, you're crazy. Like, you're not going to make it out. And they're like, one lady's like saying, oh, you need to tell the police. Other lady's like saying, don't tell the police. they're like, man, it's going to be wild. And I remember like every day was a different trip. Like one day I get all these signs, like it's going to be great. Next day I get a sign that it's not. Like I had a dream that I got shot by a Peruvian. Like, yeah, it was just like, it was a mad pilgrimage. But long story short, I went to a few different places that I know other brands and things use that you know, use this medicine. But then everything just pointed me into that particular jungle. Because in that jungle, our cacao, which makes ours special, is ours is wild crafted. So most other brands is like plantation or a family farm or a business. Ours is actually grown by indigenous tribes in South America. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we actually, so it's like a 16-hour bus ride, a 7-hour canoe ride down the Amazon. And that's where 300 families, they live and they in the wild, and they actually grow and they cultivate it in the wild there. And so, you know, the money that we give them, they use it to get their land titles back. Because I remember when I first got there, like it was such an epic like journey. Like I didn't know I was going to make it, if I was going to die. I ended up, you know, consulting plant medicine. I ended up consulting oracles and like tarot card readers. I'm like, give me a sign. And in the end, I did go in, but the scary part was for me wasn't actually being in the jungle. That never terrified me. The scary part for me was the boat ride, the 7-hour canoe ride, because at any point they know I'm a commercial, like I'm here to do a commercial transaction, and you know that's easy money. And so, but I remembered as I was taking the bus, like there was heaps. There was like a full coup happening in some of the towns and stuff that was going on, man. Like full adventure story. But I remember like there's a 16-hour bus ride, then a 2-hour car ride. And I remembered like, I was like, had this anxiety in me. I'm like, oh my God, like this is the chance. Like once I get to that boat, I have to make this decision. Do I get on it or do I leave? And I remembered before that, I was like, I would walk around Cusco, and everywhere I went, I'd get stopped. You want cocaina? You want cocaina? You know what I mean? I'm like, man, do I like stand out? Like, is this so obvious? If I go into the jungle, man, I'm 100% gonna get like, I'm 100% gonna get kidnapped, right? And then I remembered I went and consulted I consulted one of my friends, and he basically sent me a shaman, and they came and picked me up, and they took me into the forest, into the mountains. And what they did was they did a welcoming ceremony where they welcomed me to the country, and they basically, I don't know what the heck he was saying, because it was in Quechua, and he was like, "Anana Padre Daniel, nanana Australia, nanana cacao, da 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 da," and it's like there was a translator that was saying like, "This is for your family, this is for your mother, this is for your father, this is for safe travels." It was this full like ceremony, and then like, "This is for protection." And I remember the shaman saying to me like through the translator's like, "Full faith. Only with full faith can you accomplish this mission." And I'm like, whoa. Because I started to realize, I'm like, is it the outside world that's affecting me, making me feel fear? Or is it my internal fears that's creating this reality where things are going wrong?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow. So it's like, Daniel, if you want to get on this boat and get this cacao, you need to have full faith. Otherwise, if you have an ounce of fear, someone's going to pick up on it and bad things are going to happen. And so it was a really beautiful internal journey. And as I was at the bus, I was alright. I got to the car, I'm like, whoa, this is a bit like dodgy. But then I was in the middle of the jungle, and my other favorite DJ before he stopped playing trance was Tiesto, and my favorite album was Elements of Life. Like, I listened to it over and over. I went to 3 of the concerts, and I'm in the middle of the jungle, and the boat guy he's the boat driver gets out of the car to take us, there, and I'm just about to meet him. As he gets out of the car, what's he wearing? He's wearing a Tiesto t-shirt. Elements of Life, and I'm like, man, we're gonna be sweet. We're fine. And the symbol's like this bird as well, and so like the bird is like one of my spirit animals. And so I jumped onto the boat. As soon as I got to the land, I felt super safe. I walked onto the land, and I was like, wow. I had an initial thought, I'm like, wow, like this is exactly where I wanted to live. I think I said it before, like sitting under a palm tree, a coconut, I'm like, I don't even need to leave. Like, I'm home. Like, I'm done. But then there was another voice in my head that just said, but why are you here? And it's like, well, they've invited you here. I'm like, why have they invited you here? It's like, well, because their forests are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and they need to commercialize cacao as a means to preserve their land and protect their way of life, protect their culture, because there's so much illegal farming, cocaine trafficking, like so much bad stuff that's happening in the forest. And during these times, these are the times when the Amazon was burning. As soon as I got in there, man, it just started to burn, like, which is crazy. But it's super important to like that's why it was super important to me to source it from these guys. These are the farmers, and these are the people. It's all a business where they have money and it's everything's safe and secure. But this is a tribe, this is a village, and they're there to protect that, and we're very happy to support that. So yeah, that's like how I sourced it, why I sourced it, and that's why I feel like our cacao is some of the best in the world.
So I don't even know where to go from here, because like, it's just like, the thing I fucking just love about you is you have an idea, and we spoke about this before the podcast, but there's no, like, it's like your mentality is just like, well, why not? Like, why not go for it?
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't matter what gets thrown. Where there's the willingness to try, there will be a way.
Yeah.
You've just got to look for the way.
Absolutely.
Instead of looking for the road barrier.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, sometimes our biggest road barriers is our biggest like opportunities to grow.
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand. I was in Cusco. I had a dream. I got shot. I went and took San Pedro for guidance. San Pedro is meant to take 40 minutes to kick in and last for 4 hours. It didn't kick in for 4 hours. Kicked in when I got into the taxi. The taxi driver's driving me home, and he's like angry at me for some reason. I look at him in the mirror, in the rearview mirror, and I see his eyes, and he's the dude that shot me in my dream.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Like, and so I'm like, oh man, like, this is hectic. Get out of the car. I'm walking down the street, and I'm like, cause again, I was in that fear mode, and I was on San Pedro, so I was like pretty wild. And I'm walking down the street, and everyone's like hollering at me, and I'm like, man, just like go home. And as I get to the bottom, I remember seeing this guy in this blue hoodie, like he's like a bit drunk, and as he walks past me with his hands, and he goes, ch-ch, bang, to my head, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, dude, I am going to die on this trip, like, no doubt. But that's when I contacted my mate. He said, dude, I told him that story. He was like, chill, like, yeah, contact me, we'll talk about it. And he's like, tell me the story. I told him the story, and he was so happy at the start. And as soon as I told him the story, he's like, bro, this is really serious, man. He's like, where are you now? I'm sending a driver, like, dude, we need to get you out of there, man. He's like, dude, you are in serious trouble. Like, he thought I was just playing. He thought, like, oh, it's going to be mild. But it was, like, the most serious thing he's ever heard. And he pulled me out and saved me, which is great. And now we're really good friends, which is awesome. But that's the thing. Like, I had a choice. And even my mum, like, she felt my energy. And she called me the next day. She's like, son, what happened? I felt like you died yesterday. I'm like, Mom, I did. Like, I literally like got shot on the street. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was bad. And she's like, what are you gonna do, son? I'm like, I don't know, Mom. She's like, son, you know if you come back, you're gonna hate yourself. Like, you're gonna regret it. And I'm thinking to myself, how? And there was a party waiting for me to come home with the cacao. You know, I actually had a party planned, everything like full, the 3rd edition of the cacao party ready to go, man. And the girl that I fell in love with was actually going back and preparing the party for me to come home. And I'm like, well, I can't go home empty-handed. Yeah. But am I gonna sit here and look at my fears and just be like, and be too scared, or am I just gonna be like, nah, find a way? Yeah. And so I found a way, and I faced my fears, and I went through it, and I'm so glad I did, because it was totally safe. It was totally fine. Like, everyone was just tripping, and I'm so glad I did, because now we've made a connection to that tribe, to that village, made a connection to that culture. I feel like the cacao is like the most beautiful and the best on the market, best tasting, and it comes from the best source. And so, you know, the biggest risk comes with the biggest rewards. You know, I didn't play it safe. You know, I in the face of like potential death. You know, I went for it. And even my mum said, she's like, son, she actually, when I said goodbye to her when I left Melbourne, she's like, son, in case I never see you again, just know, like, you know, you are loved and I love you and I respect your decision to do this. Like, which is hectic. And my mum's like pretty much saying like, I might die. I'm like, you know, I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, damn, am I actually like walking into my own funeral right now? Like, what the hell is happening? But literally, that's what it felt like, you know? It was wild, man. It was absolutely wild. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I said, I'm pretty extreme, so I'm not here to play the middle road. You know?
It's really cool, like hearing. It's really cool hearing that, because like that is an extreme, like being faced with all those things, constant fear after fear after fear.
Yeah.
Do you find, having gone through that entire experience, not that everything else now seems kind of like minute, but like it's given you that perspective of, well, I survived that. Why the fuck can't I survive this? Whatever this thing is now that I'm facing.
Well, okay, well, this is going to go deep now.
That's what we're all about.
Alright, so this is going to go over the edge. So, all those things I just spoke about up until this point has been everything external. Except for, you know, is it my reality? Is my internal what's creating my external, or external creating this one? And when it comes to anything external, anything fearful external, like, I'll conquer it. Like, there's two types of things that motivate people. It's either pain or pleasure, right? And sometimes, you know, people either move away from pain or move towards pleasure. But sometimes if there's pain before the pleasure, people move away from that and never get to the pleasure that they want. I'm the opposite. If there's something that I want, you put as much pain in front of me or fear, like, I'm going through it. Like, there is no stopping me. Whether it's a jungle, whether it's this, whether it's drug dealers, whatever. Like, I'm going through it. And that's just how I roll. Other people, you know, they just move away from pain and never really go for what they want. But I'm always a person, I'm highly motivated by pleasure, which is why I love, like, you know, chasing highs and creating highs. Like, I love chasing that pleasure and having that pleasure. That was all well and good. Like, to do that in the external world is fine. Coming back. So I lived out of a van for 6 years since I quit DJing. 6 years in a van, total freedom, swimming in the ocean every day, sunrise every day, running, beach, everything, living my dream. Go to Peru, source the cacao, come home, straight into lockdown. Now there's no external fear. I am locked in four walls with my mother and my new partner, new business, and I am faced with myself. Yeah. And that fear of going inward, that crippled me. That completely destroyed me. Yeah. Yeah. And because I'm constantly chasing pleasure, I'm actually not looking at my fears or looking at my past, looking at things that have hurt me. And I have no recollection of my childhood. I don't remember anything 14 and below. And so being in a room by myself with no stimulus, no freedom, no nature, none of the things that brought me joy, I was really forced to go in. And the last 2 years have been like one hell of a roller coaster ride for me. Like quite tormenting, very triggering, a lot of past trauma stuff come up. And those fears are like very hard to kind of face, you know? The external fears, like, yeah, I'll conquer it. Give me a challenge. Like, you put a challenge on the table, like, I'll do it. I think even Stivka the other day, man, he was like, he like took my phone. He's like, I'm not going to give you your phone back until you do 50 push-ups. I'm like, man, I've never done 50 push-ups in my life. But I'll give it a go. Bro, I did 49, man, in a row. And I was like, damn, like, man, why don't you do this more often? Like, that was pretty good, you know? But internal stuff, like the internal stuff for me is like super challenging and super hard. And so, yeah, locked in a room for that amount of time in the most locked down city in the world. with none of my, joys. And I don't have vices. I don't binge watch Netflix. I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I don't use the usual substances or things that people do to escape. Like, I probably dive into work a bit too much, but I'm quite sober, so I'm like facing my shit front on. And that was the most scariest point in my life. So I went really deep, really dark. And I'm only literally like in the past few weeks just coming out of it. Like, so yeah, that was a hectic ride.
And what were the things that you found the most useful through that time?
Literally, no bias but cacao.
Yeah.
No doubt. Like, when I was at my darkest point, the girl that I loved, I saw a whole future with her, marriage, kids, everything, and it's the only girl I really saw all of that with. And I was all in. But it didn't work out. COVID, family issues, a whole bunch of stuff didn't work out. And so she was in the business with me, lived with me, worked with me, everything. When she left, I felt completely just destroyed. Mm-hmm. I felt completely destroyed, and because I lost everything that I had, that brought me joy, like my travel, everything, lost it all. And so it was very hard for me to pull myself out of that. And every day I would wake up, I'd have heaps of guilt, shame, loss, regret, like all these negative emotions would pop up. And every morning I'd wake up and I'd be like so dense and so heavy. And so, but I tried everything. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do Wim Hof breathing. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go for a swim, meditate. I would do all of those things, and it would get me up to a certain point. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I can probably handle the day. But as soon as I got home and I had that cup of cacao, it was just like, boom, straight into my heart space. I'm like, all right, well, okay, that's home. Like, I'm good. Let's keep going. Because I've never been in that dark place. Like, I've always had cacao to enhance my high already. It was always something I would have. I'm pretty happy, I'm enjoying it, have a cacao. Never did I really experience it on the downturn, like when I was at my lowest point. And then to actually have cacao, and I should be technically pretty immune to cacao.
I don't think I've ever seen you without a cup of cacao.
Yeah, bro, like I should be pretty immune
by now.
Can I
just point out, he literally came to this podcast, pulled out of his bag a carton of milk and cacao. I was like, do you carry this everywhere? He's like, you never know when you're going to need it.
You never know when you're going to need it. You're going to bump into it. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, like I would have that cacao, and it really pulled me back into my heart space. And funnily enough, because if you think about it, I started this business with my ex. Then I pulled my most recent girlfriend into it as well. I ran it together. So by the time she left as well, there was so much pain and trauma attached to this business that every time I went to look at it or use it or whatever, it would just remind me of my girlfriends, and especially the one that I just recently lost. And I was like, oh, I couldn't do it. And so I called up I called up the team and I just said, I'm out. I can't do this. Like, this is too traumatizing for me. Yeah. I literally called up and I quit. I quit in November last year. I'm like, guys, I'm destroyed. I'm devastated. I can't do it. I got rid of it. And I'd literally already just spent like tens of thousands of dollars getting like new packaging in, ingredients in, and it was just sitting there waiting to go into the new packaging. That was just about, she left just before we were about to launch our new packaging. And and it was really unfortunate because, well, fortunate or unfortunate, but she just left before then, and I was like, you know what, I can't do it. So I put it on pause, went into some deep healing, and it literally was the cacao that actually saved me. Like, it got me out of it. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, man, if this cacao is actually saving me now during COVID, when everyone around me was going through having a really difficult time mentally, and normally people would actually come to me for support. People will come to me for advice and guidance, and people are coming to me and then they're seeing me being an absolute wreck, and they're just like, they didn't know what to do, man. They're just like, they didn't know how to handle me. They couldn't even hold space for me. They were actually really worried and concerned, and actually added more worry onto my worry, and so I had to pull myself out, and cacao actually pulled me out. And after like 3 months of working with her again and just like giving it time and space, like, the guys who I get to package it for me, they're like, Dan, are we doing this? Like, we've got all these ingredients here, you got all this packaging here, like, what do you want to do? And I had 20 grand left in the bank, and I was like, it was going to cost me 20 grand to do it. And I was like, you know what, stuff it. Again, fear. So I was like, I don't care if I lose the 20 grand. Let's go one more round. And I went in, put the cacao in the packaging. I did a launch video of me DJing like on this beach. And it was a really beautiful, a really beautiful ode to my ex as well. I played all my music has meaning, so I played a very beautiful track that kind of like said goodbye and things like that. But it was like, nah, like I'm putting that behind me and I'm going to continue. No matter how hard it is to keep moving forward, like I'm going to continue on this journey because there's a lot of guilt and like, you know, sadness and stuff that's imbued in it that I'm working through with it. But I ended up taking that step forward, and since taking that step forward, it is just like bang, like completely opened up and exploded, and it's like now helping so many more people. And so yeah, like as soon as I realized how much it saved me at that dark time, I'm like, wow, this cacao really is the medicine that can actually, you know, help heal the planet. And luckily enough, it has been handed to me and given to me for me to give it out. And I give it out in such a different and unique way. Most people give it out in ceremonies and things like that, but I give it out. I started in parties, you know what I mean? So yeah, like, but now I'm full spectrum, and so I've come full spectrum with it. And so yeah, cacao is one of the the main thing that got me out of that dark place.
So I don't know where to go from here now, because it's just amazing. Like, it's so amazing just to hear how something, I'll say as simple as like cacao has you've grown with it, like, and through it. Like, it's mind blowing just to see where it started to where it is and where it's going to go, because you have showing zero signs of slowing down, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's just ramping up.
Yeah,
we're just getting started.
You're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And that's the thing, had it not been, like, again, like I said this in the middle of this conversation, had it not been for the service, if other people didn't need it, I would have stopped it.
Yeah.
But because so many people, like everyone that I said, like, I'm going to stop, they're like, bro, are you crazy? Like, we need this, man. And then I thought to myself, like, what would a world be like if it didn't have this? Like, this particular brand, Sacred, this particular flavor, like, you know, everything that came with it, I'm like, I wouldn't be happy. Like, you know, if I couldn't drink this every day, I wouldn't be as happy.
I'd actually be really bummed.
Cheers, man. Cheers. I appreciate it. But then on the other side to that, it's like, because there was so much pain with my past relationships with it, I was like, well, what if I was to give it up, then what was all that for?
Yeah.
It was for nothing, you know? And so I'm like, nah, this is the hero's journey. You know, talk about barriers and blockages and fears. That's my internal fear. I'm working through that. I'm working through the guilt, the shame, the pain, everything that comes with it. And it's been hard, but it's been pushing me to develop myself, because if I can, rather than quitting and turning away and moving away from my fear, like I say other people do, which is something I don't want to do, I'm like, front row center, let's go, strapped in, let's get through this, it's going to be hectic. But I know on the other side is going to be my freedom, it's going to be my liberation, and once I get through it, I'm still not there yet, but once I get through it, then I can help others do the same. And that's what I feel is the medicine. Like, I love my music, I love talking, if you guys haven't noticed, and I love cacao, you know, so I put them all together, and it's a really beautiful story.
I'm just so happy that you came here. Man, no, really, because like ever since I met you, like I heard about you before I met you, and then like obviously I met Ariel and Steve for my whole life, and then I remember the day that I met you, I was like, this fucking guy. Like, I just didn't, but you were just like this really happy dude that was just like, you're like, yeah, I live in my van. I pull out cacao. Yeah, I'll make you a hot chocolate on a Saturday morning. And it's just, it's incredible. Every time I speak to you, I've never ever underestimated you at all, but every time I speak to you, it's so much more than I could have ever imagined. You've just got like the way that you're able to approach things, the depth in which you just try and help is super fucking rare.
Cheers, man.
No, it really is. And it's like, I'm super grateful to have met you, because when I moved back to Geelong, there was maybe a handful of people that I ever would have wanted to speak to again. To be completely honest, like, that were close to me. And all of these incredible people started coming to my life, and you're one of them.
You
and
too,
it's
man.
like, and it gave me hope to see. I said to Mon, I was like, I always wanted to be in Melbourne because of the ambition that came with Melbourne, the ambition that surrounded me. And I think there's a lot of that in Geelong, but I just never saw it around me. Ever since I moved down here, it's just been surrounded with things like that, and that intention and that purpose that comes along with, everything with the people I met, and especially you, it's just fucking unheard of. There's just so much there's so much weight behind what you do. It's wild. It really is. It blows my mind.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
So this is part 1 of 8.
So every
Story times
season,
with Dan.
every season you can expect Dan just back on for another episode.
But no, I've got to say the same thing, you know, because when I went to Bondi, I left the scene here, and I was known in the scene to be a certain way. I was the party boy. I was like, we go bowling, and people are like, man, let's fucking have a line, let's drink, whatever. I'm like, bro, we're bowling. Like, what are we doing? So I had to leave and then come back, and then I had to completely recreate myself. And I never saw Melbourne as my home. I saw Bondi as my home, because I created a whole different community that actually resonated with who I really want to be. But to come home, and never did I ever think in a million years that I would come to Geelong and could meet such beautiful people like yourselves, you know, Stivka, Ariel, you know, Laura, everyone, the rest. And it's like I have that same community that I had in Bondi, I have here in Geelong, and it's just so beautiful to meet like-minded people. This inspires me, and that's why I have my other business called Like-Minded. Like, I see people's potential, and that's one of my assets, is like I can see pretty far and pretty wide and pretty long and pretty deep. And so I see someone, I got this idea, and they can show it to me, and they're excited about it, and then I take it and I'm like, and I expand it, like, oh my god, it's like, yeah, now you have to do it, and they do it, and then they do it, and they, like I told you before about my mate Laurent, you know, and so that for me is just another service, you know. If I was to not help that person do that, like, I feel like if we all do what we love, then the world will know peace. You know, so I think we all should be tapping into what we love, and that's what I love about what you guys are doing, because you're creating a real experience. You're showing people who they really are and what their real potential could be, and showing not just like the light side of what people do. Like, a lot of podcasts are just like, hey, what do you do? This is what you've achieved, this and that. You're also showing the other side as well. And so for me, that's a really beautiful, holistic experience that the world needs to share, because we need to accept and share the light and the dark. Otherwise, we're not fully accepting ourselves. And that's what you guys are doing. And I'm so grateful to be here, be able to share my light and dark, you know what I mean? So it's cool.
I fucking love you.
I love you too, man.
I love you too, Dan. I couldn't agree more with both of you. Like, I think what I loved when I first met you, like, you honestly, you came out of nowhere. I was like, where are these people popping out from? I've been here the whole time, and I'm just like, none of yous were here, and then all of a sudden, we're all down at the beach, drinking chocolate milk,
doing
jumping in ice.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
What's going on
What is
here?
happening? But it was so cool. Like, and I said this actually at the cacao ceremony that we did at Point Addis. We went around in the circle, and I can't remember what the question was. Or your favorite sacred or cacao moment or something like that. Anyway, and I said something like, it's been really cool for me to witness from the very beginning, like, this whole thing unfolding. Like, I haven't always been involved in it, like, week after week after week, but I was there at the very beginning when, like, the little ice baths started. And then you started to get introduced. And then you guys, like, managed to just cultivate this community of people that just felt like they belonged somewhere, and the connection and full acceptance of, this is where I'm at in my life right now. There are other people that can actually empathize with me as well. It was just insane to watch, because it didn't happen over 10 years. It happened in the space of like 6 months. Like, it wasn't that long, but like, I know I'd speak to some people there, and you'll find a random person, you know, you get asked a question, and it's like, I feel like I've known you for 10 years and I've met you for a solid 35 seconds. Like, what is that about?
Yeah.
And it's just cool, because for me, the thing I love with being with you and just everything I've ever done, it's similar to you. It's, I just want to bring people together. And I'll be the professional dreamer and show you the possibilities of, like, what's possible. Like, I'm not going to give you the answers, but I will show you, and I'll lead the way to show you that you can actually fucking do anything. Don't follow me, but follow the example of, you can just go and do it. Just go. Don't let the fear stop you. Don't let, you know, that negative self-talk and the inner critic stop you. Like, set yourself free, and then you can set other people free, because they'll watch you and they'll see you, and what they're going to love and gravitate towards is the freedom that you allow yourself by simply being you. And that, I know it's cliche.
Exactly. No, that's like spot on. Like, I'm getting serious.
But that's the thing, like what you said about when you met Dan the first time, I was like, this dude's just being himself. There's nothing there is nothing like inauthentic about it, and I fucking love
nothing.
when I meet a person and like they're just them. Like it's like there's no fabrication, there's no bullshit stories. There's probably shit underneath it all, like we all have. We've all got baggage, but you just show up as you and nothing else. And like when you do that around people like down at the waterfront and even probably at the parties that you guys throw, like you're showing people that it's okay to just be themselves and nothing bad happens. Really good things actually happen.
Actually, all the magic happens.
That's it. That's it.
And you're right, like absolutely just I was thinking about it on the way here. I was like, man, what should I be wearing to this thing? You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, you know you don't have any other outfits, bro. It's like, dude, if you were to put on something else, you wouldn't be you. And the show is called Be More You. So I'm like, just rock up as you are, man. I'm like, sweet, well, good. I didn't have any other outfits anyway. So I got one uniform and that's it. But that's how it is. And, you know, it is important that we do show up like that. Like, I'm not here to, if I try and alter or change myself to get someone else's affection or attention, then I'm actually manipulating them, for one. B, if they do like me, they are liking me for who I'm portraying myself to be, not for who I really am. And C, like, you know, it's been really beautiful. In the last week, we had this, we actually got an amazing Airbnb, and we did this, like, most ridiculous cacao ceremony. Like, man, it started off with wood fire pizza. Then we had cacao with lily in it and rosemary. And then it just went deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was with a bunch of mates that I knew very well and some mates that I've only just gotten to know. But we went so deep, and I, especially being the host, actually went the deepest at the end and went right down to the bottom of my barrel. And I shared some of the most deepest, darkest things that I've ever experienced, and things that have happened to me, things that I've done. And I just shared it, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to lay myself out here on this like altar, on this table, you know? I'm just going to be like, that's it. I'm just going to just put myself out there and see what happens. And you know what? I actually received so much love. And I could receive that love even more, because I'm like, wow, it's very easy to receive love when you're showing someone your light. But when you show someone your dark and they still love you, it's super powerful. And so I think that's the most important thing about, you know, being more you, is like being more you in both of those aspects, like the full 100%. Facet of your being. And bro, you did an extreme example. Like that's when I first, you know, found out you was like, when you jumped on Mon's podcast, you know, and you like basically was like super vulnerable. I watched that and I was like, this is the most realest shit I've seen like ever. And I was like, man, thank you, bro, because now you inspired me to be more of myself in my darkness, in my fears, man. So thank you, bro. That means a lot.
Oh, guys, I'm gonna cry.
Oh, same.
And thank you for like bringing my yeah. Nah, but that was definitely like inspirational for me, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, this dude is like being fully vulnerable right now. I'm like, man, and then I thought to myself, how would I feel if I was at that chair? And I'm like, I want to speak. I want to share all my stories, my light and my dark. I want to share it all, because one thing that I learned from sitting ceremony is that it's not just the medicine that helps you, it's everybody's stories. I'd sit in ceremonies with 20 people, and there'd be so many people that I would learn from. I remember when I went to ceremony, the one with Ariel, there was like 20 people, and I saw a whole bunch of them, and I'm like, oh, I like you, I like you, I like you. Like, you know, I resonate with you. I'm like, you, I'm not sure about you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. You weird me out a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that when I was actually in that ceremony, I realized that the people that I gravitated towards, what I liked in them is what I liked about myself.
Yeah.
And when I was a bit adverse to these other people, I'm like, well, because they have characteristics that I don't like about myself. But then in ceremony, when they would share their story, I would have compassion. Compassion is the key to forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to everything, you know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, I was like, man, like this guy shared his story. I'm like, now I see the light in you as well. And that was forgiven. Then we all, by the end of the ceremony, we all became friends. And everything that was within me was healed, you know, in that moment in time. And so I feel it's super important to be as authentic as possible, and to not create a facade or an identity. Like, people call me the Cacao Man. I don't like it when they call me that, but I'm Daniel, and I'm a human being on this planet in this incantation, you know what I mean? It's like Dan the Cacao Man, or like before Dan the DJ.
Rhymes, I suppose, as
Sorry?
well. It rhymes, so.
Dan the Cacao Man. Yeah, it does rhyme, actually.
But I think that also comes, like what you just said then, not the Cacao Man. But the whole, you know, not putting on a facade and stuff. The 3 core, like, fundamental needs, just as human beings, is to be seen and heard and loved, essentially. But seen and heard for who you are. You can't be loved unless you're seen and heard for the person that you know you are at the core, right? It's every single child. That's all they need, is to be seen, heard, and loved. And adults, same deal. Like, that never leaves us. No. It's when we start fabricating these stories and trying to become other people that we get frustrated at ourselves when we're not seen and heard. But it's like, you're showing up as someone that you know you're not at the core of it. So how are you going to accept love when you can't actually love yourself for the person that you are underneath all these layers? You're not letting the world see you. So they're not seeing you. They're not hearing you because you're not speaking your truth.
Exactly.
So like what you said before about that podcast, I fucking shit myself going into that podcast. Dude, I was so scared. I was having meltdown after meltdown. Mon was like, is this guy gonna rock up? Something I will always, like, the thing is with me, I will tell you how afraid I am, but I'm still gonna do it. Yeah. I just need to tell you that I'm really afraid. And I need to tell you over and over again, so I'm fucking freaking out. But I'll walk in. But one of the things, like you said about Hater being called the Cacao Man and Dan the DJ, for my whole life, it's Stefan, that happy guy that's always smiling. Stefan, he's happy, he's this, he's that, he's yada, yada, yada. I'm just like, yeah, I'm fucking pretty happy. When I'm happy, I am happy. But I always hate the thought to think that people would compare themselves to me. Flat stick, they'd be like, I wish I could just be as happy as you. I'm like, you don't fucking know. Like, and it's not like, I'm not saying that in a really negative way to be like, you don't understand. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm not happy because I'm not. I have the flip side of people meeting me being like, listen, dude, you can't be this happy all the time. They'd go, I remember this one guy years ago would be like, he sat me down properly because I was seeing this girl that he was really good friends with. He's like, listen, people like you, they fucking explode. One day they'll just pop. And I'd sit there and be like, you have no idea what I'm trying to process right now. I'm happy when I'm happy, but I'm not fucking turning away from it all. So the reason I start saying this now is because what you were just saying, I've watched everything shift around me this year. Everything has just completely shifted because just to be able to, just as fucking horrible as it felt, to be able to stand and talk. The reason that I did it is because at the ice bars, I started speaking. I got real fucked up for the last time. It's been the last time since I've taken drugs. And I didn't go to the ice bars for 3 weeks. And people were really disappointed that I wasn't coming down. I had people like, where are you, this and that. And I'm like, I'm fully meltdown mode. And I'm like, I felt so unsupported. And I remember we were at the ice bars and Steve, the fucking Steve, the topic was letting go. And I'm like, this motherfucker. It's like, you know that I've got a bunch of shit I need to let go of. And I just started talking and I started letting it all out. And I was crying in front of all these people talking. A lot of my partner at the time was sitting next to me. She was like, oh my God, you're saying everything. And I just started talking and it felt good to just talk, but what I noticed what happened around me is people started opening up. I had this dude come up to me, he was 18, he was like, hey man, one of my friends is taking too many drugs, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't either. However, I'm happy to fucking talk more about what I've been through. Maybe it will just be comforting for you to know. You know, and then I had other people message me being like, hey, my sister this or my brother that. And I never wanted to share anything because I was like, I didn't want to ever glorify what I'd been through because the only way drug use had ever been outlaid to me was in a way of, oh, man, I had this many pills on the weekend, or I stayed up for this many days, or I did this, I did that. It was just like a fucking measuring competition. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to ever be portrayed as that, knowing that now coming in from the perspective of not wanting to, you're not going to, you're consciously aware of that perspective. You're not going to fucking slip into it. But I was like, I remember standing there after that first week, I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe I'm wrong about this whole thing. Because I just accepted the fact, I was like, live your light and it'll be fine. And you'll make the impact for whatever it is of living your truth will be. Just live that. The week later, I met Ariel for the first time ever. And I was standing there and Steve said something about sharing again. And I was like, fuck it. Last week, I'll go again this week.
Let's do it.
And I was like, and I started talking and I didn't realize, just met Ariel and she started crying. Actually, and then we got matched up to talk to one another. And we started talking, she started crying again, we hugged each other and the thing that she was going through I actually knew, it's fucked we'd never met. We know everybody else in each other's life.
Yeah.
But I remember after meeting her, and she actually mentioned you. She mentioned Sacred. She mentioned what your mission was and everything that you were doing. And it resonated so deeply with me because I was like, all I've ever wanted to do was be able to create a safe space for people where they could go and connect without taking drugs. I hated playing music in my old band and feeling like I wasn't cool if I didn't hang out and have a line afterwards. I used to have people would be disappointed if I didn't fucking snort cocaine with them in the toilets afterwards, or if I didn't get drunk. I did a tour completely sober, and all my bandmates were fucking, not all of them actually, if anybody hears them, but a couple of my bandmates were fucking kind of pissed that I wasn't drinking with them. And to hear that, and I was like, this is not coincidence that I met her. This is not coincidence that she does what she does. The people in her life are. But again, walking away from that, I'm like, I'm fucking wrong. I'm completely wrong. I need to fucking talk about this in some way, because not only is it help, I can see it's helping other people opening up, but I'm like, I feel so much better. I'm like, how much shame and guilt am I holding on to this? And then to have her come into my life and to mention all the things that you do, and I'm like, now's the time.
Yes.
and then Mon, and then I met Mon.
And then I'm like, hey, do you want to do a podcast together?
So you had that realization, then met you, and it's like,
Well,
alright, let's go, let's lay it out.
The funniest thing is, like, when I, so initially that podcast episode with just him was actually meant to be Steve and you, because I didn't know you.
No, we didn't know each other.
I was like,
Steve.
I only knew Steve, right? So I said to Steve, I'm like, hey, I really want to do an episode angled around men's mental health. And I actually don't even know why I said your name, to be honest with you, because I met you once and it was at the ice bath, and I thought you was the biggest weirdo because he just came up to me. He was like, never met him. He's like, hey, I'm Stefan, and just like hugged me, and I was like, dude, personal space. Actually, fuck, like, who is this guy? And I remember looking at him, I'm like, oh wait, I think I've done a Pilates class of yours. And then he just started popping up everywhere. But yeah, I said to Steve, I want to do this podcast. He was like, yep, sick, let's lock in a date. We locked in a date. And then Steve actually went to Adelaide to do that thing with you.
Whoa, no way.
Because he messages me and goes, hey, I'm not going to make it back in time for the podcast. Is there any chance we can reschedule? And I'm sitting there like, I can't reschedule because I don't have an episode this week. Like, I don't have an episode. So I go back to him and I'm like, hey, I know we don't know each other really well, but would you still be keen to like sit down and do this podcast? And he was like, you don't want mine? Yeah, I would. I was like, sick. Not knowing anything he's going to say or speak about, because I didn't even give him any prompts. I was just like, yeah, we'll just talk about mental health. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then the lead up to it was like a week. He was freaking the fuck out. I'm like, what's this guy going to say? Like, how much more reassurance do I have to give him that it's fine?
Because I was like, if I'm going to talk, I'm saying everything.
I know, bro. You're laying it out, man. You're laying it out completely.
So then he rocks up to my house. No, the day before I went to a yoga class. And I'm like, oh, so you're good for tomorrow? And he's just like, I'm freaking out. And I was like, relax. Anything you say, like, if you don't want me to put it in, I won't put it in. He's like, no, like, I'm going to be open. I was like, all right, cool. Still in my head going, this is going to be great. Like, we'll just talk about whatever shit. And then he rocks up to my house sweating. And he's like, I've been sitting in my van for like 20 minutes at the front of your house, freaking out. And I was like, fuck. Like, now I'm freaking out because I'm like, what's he going to say? I don't know. Am I going to have an episode this week, or am I going to have to pin this? Then he just started talking, and I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, this is massive. Like, because it was the first person I'd had on the podcast who just went like straight in, and it was crazy because I was like, I don't know you. Like, how are you just telling me all this stuff? Like, do you know where this is going globally? Like, are you sure you're okay with this all being said? And then, yeah, it ended up being the top rated podcast. Like, I had people messaging me left, right, and center being like, that conversation needs to be had more. Like, louder and louder. And then the rest was...
There's a lot of crossovers with you in there.
Dude, first of all, let me start by saying I had no idea that you met Ariel at that time. I thought you and Ariel had been friends for ages.
Never met her before.
Never met her before. So you met her after I've met her. Okay, that I did not know. So that's weird enough as it is, alright? Yeah. That's strange. And then for Steve actually didn't come to Adelaide for me or with me. Steve just needed to get out to take care of his mental health. Ended up going to Adelaide, knowing that I was kind of going to be there. Went to see a friend of his, who turns out is a friend of mine, who helped me with my mental health when I was going through my breakdown. Didn't realize we were all friends. Steve extended his trip, and that I'd only met Steve once as well. And then on that trip, me and Steve and everybody, we went deep. We did our 3 days at a market. We did cacao ceremony there, and then we went into the forest. And we were in the forest for 5 days, and I think it was like 5 days, maybe 3-4 days, and we went so deep, and we came out the other side, and we were just like, that was like, this is meant to be, and obviously this was meant to be, which is like, this is the other side of that, you know, and I'm just like, wow. I'm like, whoa, that's hectic.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, that podcast is probably like one of my favorite podcasts as well, because of the rawness, because of the authenticity, and that for me is the conversations that need to be had. If we're talking about presenting ourselves to people and only showing one side of ourselves so we get accepted, and then you go and do this like podcast, like for me as well, when I was coming here, I'm like, man, I'm thinking to myself, Dan, how deep are you gonna go, bro? Like, are we gonna keep it on this side, talk about life, talk about business, or are we gonna go into like the depths of your darkness and how you're going through it and all that sort of stuff? And I'm ready, the same thing, I'm ready to go there. I'm ready to speak about everything, because I feel like it's the conversations that we don't have are the conversations that we need to have. And like kudos to you guys, man, for doing that and for bringing these conversations to light, because and obviously, again, service to others, the world obviously needs it. That's why it's like the highest rated podcast or the most watched or listened to podcast.
Well, it's funny as well that you say that, because this whole thing initially was meant to be essentially a school program. Oh no, it's laughable now, but
somebody trying to bring me to a school the other week. I'm like, you don't want me talking at the school.
But I remember when it was that, when we were talking about that, because the person that approached us to do this was like, you guys need to be speaking, like younger generations need to hear about you, blah 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 blah, you need to be in schools. I had so much resistance towards it, because I was like, I'm not going into a fucking school where they're going to censor me and tell me what I can and can't say, because that's what I've been doing my entire life. I've been literally told to shut up, be quiet, I don't know what I'm talking about, and for the first time, I've set myself free from that shit, and I'm talking as if, like, I'm talking my truth. I'm saying the things that I need to be said in my way. I'm not now going to go back to the place that, you know, once told me, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to be a certain way. No. So then when we sat down together and we're like, what's this thing? Like, what's it going to be? We just literally sat down with a piece of paper. And
Which is paper?
Yeah.
I've got it inside, actually.
It was a mind map. It was just like, put down every idea that you ever wanted to do, and let's see what this thing's going to be. And then it was like one of those things where it just came. Wow. He went to the bathroom, and I'm looking at this sheet, and I'm just like, all we're trying to do is create this space where people can be more themselves. And he comes back, and I like looked at him like, what about be more you? And he was just like, yeah, that's it. I think that's it. I'm like, all right, well, we'll just leave it for now. We might think of something better, but like, we'll call it that for now.
Yeah. Here we are.
And then
be more you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
I did not know that whole story. Like, that's pretty profound. Yeah,
it's funny because like it's had its challenges, but it just also feels really seamless and effortless. Like you're in the flow now. Like this is all just unfolding as it has to be.
Yeah, it's like what you said before about the cacao and how it's entwined in probably all of the hardest things that you have for you.
Yeah.
Mononite is exactly the same with this. The challenges that we've had to overcome individually and together in order to move forward, it's been fucking bonkers the way that they've been dressed. But it's like it's like, how are you going to move into maybe, or what feels like already being the most important thing I think I've ever done before in my life?
Yeah.
Of course that's going to require you to work through all the things that you need to work through. And it's like, what does that look like? Of course it's going to look different to the way that you thought it was going to look. Because if it looked the same, it wouldn't be the lesson that you need to work through. It wouldn't be the way that you need to work through it. So I think I was going to say it before, but I didn't know how to say it when you were saying about the cacao and how hard it is for your two. You came in with love twice.
Yeah. love twice, two broken hearts, and that's it. And still going, man.
Yeah.
Still going. But yeah, it is hard, and in the journey of doing it, like there's been so many times where I've been like, man, what am I doing? This is so painful. This is really like hurting my heart.
Yeah.
And I got to give it up, and then it's just like, well, then again, the thought of letting it all go, and the thought of it's like that's like giving up. You know what I mean? And it's like
that almost hurts more.
Yeah, it hurts more. It's like, well, if you give up, you're just gonna let yourself down, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
and you're gonna have to move through it at another point of your life in another way.
Yeah, exactly. And there'll be no cacao then.
You know
what I mean? So I'm like,
so it's a lose-lose.
So I'm like, man, no, we're gonna go through it. We're gonna keep the cacao. We're gonna go, you know.
Yeah.
But no, like I really do respect that, and I really do think that, especially with everything that's happening with COVID and mental health and everything, like we're going through a pandemic of mental health crisis right now.
Fuck earth, we are.
And for me, that's the most important thing. And the good thing that's come out of COVID is that people have now stopped doing what they don't want to do and have actually thought about, okay, life's too short. I'm going to do what I love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. And guilt and shame on the frequency of emotion. Like I said before, like cacao is like one of the highest frequency foods. Love is the highest frequency of emotion. And that's why chocolate and love and romance are synonymous with each other, because they both carry the same frequency. Same as roses. Roses is the highest frequency scent. Love is the highest frequency emotion. Cacao is one of the highest frequency foods. That's why they release the same chemicals. They have the same biochemical reaction on the body. Guilt and shame is the lowest frequency, lower than anger, lower than everything. It's the worst. And I never really experienced that until last year. And now that I've experienced it every single day for the past 365 days. And now I'm starting to heal that. I still see other patterns coming up. Something would happen and I'm like, I go straight back to guilt and shame now. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. That's not even something to even really for me to be feeling guilt and shame about. But why am I feeling that? Because I've now ingrained that pattern, that habitual pattern into my brain. And I'm like, now that I recognize that, I'm like, Dan, you got some serious work to do, dude. Because to pull myself out of that grain and like retrain my brain to think better and think of different perspectives, now that's a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
It's so deeply rooted.
So
like
deeply
it's
rooted.
so honest to God, you saying that part this past week, I literally feel like I've been in the garden, fucking ripping roots out left, right, and center.
Are we in metaphysical garden?
No!
What are we talking about? Like the actual garden? Or
Do you have words of advice for an actual garden?
Yeah, we're talking. It is part of the podcast. Like, you fertilizing? What are you doing here? Composting? You know?
No, but like I get it, because shame and guilt are like the foundational things. So the kinesiologist we both see.
Which one?
Andrew.
Man, I just saw him.
Oh! Man, how'd you go?
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
So again, this isn't sponsored, but if you need a kinesiologist,
100%.
Andrew Birchall.
Andrew Birchall, highly, most recommended in my books. Everybody told me about him. I don't even think you him told. Like, so I heard from other people that you've told them about them, and I'm like, whatever. So skeptical. Go in there, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, damn. He's like, he grabbed my hand, and he's like, 11%. I'm like, 11% what? He's like, 11% healed from your past relationship. I'm like, that's about right. I'm like, yeah. He does the healing on me, he does his thing, and he's like, 37%. I'm like, what, 37% healed? Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, man, he's so good. He's so good.
So when I first went and saw him, he said that my soul just continuously through 42 past lives carries shame and guilt, because back in 3000 BC, I was shunned from a tribal community out of guilt and shame. My biggest like fear is rejection. Like, so all of that, after seeing him, every pattern that comes up for me now, I'm just like, lol, makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you know the information now, but what are you going to do about it? There's no guidebook on that. There's not even a right answer. It's just like, you do what feels right in the moment. You might fuck that up, but like, the next time it comes around, because it will, it'll always come back around, dressed in a different way. Like, you've just got to move through that as well. Absolutely. But now you know what didn't work last time. What are you going to do this time to change the history, to change the outcome of it all?
Of course, because it's just the history repeats itself.
That's
until
it.
The lessons learned until you do something differently.
That's it.
And yeah, after seeing Andrew as well, like he's the one that showed me. He's like, dude, this is where you are. He's like, man, you are such a powerful being. You should be up here you are here, bro. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do feel that. And he's like, even from this place, you are creating so much good. He's like, can you imagine what you would do if you were up here? I'm like, all right, man, I'm committed to this path. Like, let's heal this. And I'm sick because I purposefully and intentionally carry the guilt. It's like, I deserve this. You know, I don't know where it came from past lives. I think he said I've been here like 67 times or something like that. 67 lives. I have 115 traumas to heal and this and that. So I'm like, sweet. But I intentionally carry that guilt and shame because that's home for me.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, cool. For me to elevate and to, like, again, we're talking about frequency and vibration and raise my frequency from guilt and shame. I need to learn to let that old stuff go and then learn to not carry it again. So if I do something that, you know, I feel is like not in alignment with my values, or if I've made a mistake, or if I've fucked up, man, just forgive and just let that shit go. Like, all it's doing is bringing you down, you know? And so, yeah, I've had one session with Andrew and he's like, you need like 7 sessions. You need to get healed. I'm like, sign me up, man. That's it. Give me all 7 sessions. Like, he's a beast, man. He's an absolute beast.
When are you seeing him there?
Man, I can only book him in. So Lily actually, she had a spot with him, and then my therapist was like, tell Lily to ask if he can have a cancellation to put you in. And then so Lily actually, instead of asking him for a cancellation, Lily actually gave me her spot. And then I went in, and since then, like, I've really started I've really amplified my healing journey. Yeah. And so I booked him in straight away, 7 sessions in a row, starting in Jan. So.
Yeah. So get ready for your whole world to just be turned on its head.
Oh yeah. How many times have you seen him?
Like, probably, I don't know, probably like...
I've gone 5.
I've gone 7 times then, because I've been a couple... I'm going again in January.
Whoa, man, I see you there, bro.
Yeah.
It was such a trip, because everyone's like thinking, oh, he's so 5D, and he's this, he's that. So I'm thinking, like, I don't know, I'm thinking some old dude, bald, crystals, you know, like incense
like
and shit.
Guy.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then I walk in and I just see this like tall, dark, handsome man, and I'm like, surely this guy's a receptionist now. Like, surely this guy is not going to do what everyone's saying he's doing. It's like sports kinesiologist. I'm like, well, am I in the right place? Like, what the hell is this?
What the fuck is happening
I know. And then he sits me down, and I'm seeing all this sports stuff as well. And then I see this like that 5D like ascension thing, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And he's like, all right, so what are you here for? And I'm like, I don't know whether I should say like my back or because there's no sign of me like I'm gonna get like a full-on spiritual healing, and I'm just like, voice in my head's just like, don't just fuck it, just go for it, bro. Mate, I'm here to heal all my trauma, all my past, all my this, all my that. He's like, alright, good.
and then he's just like, get on the bed.
Yeah,
like,
get on the bed, grabs my wrist, 167 lives, 115 traumas you have to heal, 3 traumas in the womb, fucking all this shit. Yeah. I'm like, damn, how do you even know all of that? Yeah, but it's beautiful because he has shown me. He's like, you have all this trauma on your mother's side, your father's side, and a lot of the trauma, a lot of the stuff that's played out in my life has come from trauma. And when I went on my spiritual journey, when I quit DJing, went on my spiritual journey, I healed everything I possibly could. I detoxified my body, my mind, my soul. I did Vipassana, 10 days of meditating, 100 hours of meditation in a row, like ayahuasca, everything. And I healed everything I possibly could heal from 30 to 14 because that's the only point I could remember. And that's when my mum left and my parents got divorced at 14. So I thought I'd healed all of that, and I was walking around like, yeah, you know, I'm healed, you know, I'm like, all right, let's go. And then, like, man, I got into some 2 serious relationships and so many triggers and mirrors and reflections, and I was like, whoa, like, what the hell is this? Where is this coming from? Happened with the first girl, and I thought, okay, cool, like, yeah, she was the crazy one. It's not me, surely. Fell in love with my next partner, who I really, really, like, loved and still love and still, like, carry in my heart. Fell in love, and the same patterns happened again, and I'm like, this is me. And I'm like, and I don't even know how to fix it.
Isn't that the interesting thing? Like, that's what I found the most interesting, because when I went to him, he's like, what do you want to heal? I went in with one thing that happened to me at the start, in the middle of this year, and I was like, it's this is the thing that's holding me back from everything. This is the cause of it all. And he's like, I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably about 2% of what's actually going on.
2%.
Yeah. But he goes, but it's the tip of the iceberg. You cracked that wide open. You experienced all that. You became really aware of that one scenario, one incident. Now it's everything else from past lives and everything that comes up, but you're not even subconsciously aware of it. So you're a sitting duck. These things start happening.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, where? From where is this? Like, oh, did I even experience this? And he's like, yeah, you did, just not in this lifetime. So how are you supposed to know how to move through it? And I remember saying to him, I'm like, so how do I clear trauma from 3000 BC? And he's like, easy. You just come here, we cut the cord. I was like, that easy, huh? That fucking easy.
But it is.
It is, I
It is. He laid me down and he's like, put his hand on my head like this, and I'm like 15 minutes, and he's talking to me. He's like, so the cacao, like, man, he's like, I opened the, like, Lily gave me some cacao and I opened it and I smelled it and it's so high frequency, man. And he's like, fully talking to me, like, so you went into the jungle, and I'm like, bro, we're having a conversation. Are you doing a healing? What are you doing? And then he gets off after 15 minutes on my head. I'm having a full conversation with this dude. How is he even concentrating on what he's doing? I don't know what's going on. And then, like, he just grabs my hand and he's like, 37% healed. I'm like, what? He's like, your relationship trauma now 37% healed. And I'm like, feeling into it. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dude, where have you been all my life, man? Like, why are you dressing yourself up as a sports kinesiologist, man? Like, dude, we gotta do something about this, man. I was like so blown away. I went back to Lily. I was like, oh my god, thank God, thank you. Like, that was so good.
It's funny, like, sorry to cut you off.
No, go. Yeah.
Like, those shifts, the first session I ever did, like, I went in with a fully open mind. I was like, this is not going to be anything that I expect, so don't expect anything. Just whatever it is it is. And I remember, like, it was 2 weeks after I had seen him, or a week after, and I don't know, something was happening, and it's like this physical thing got cut in me.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I was sitting there and I was like, oh, what was that? And the next week I went back to him and I was like, this weird thing happened where I was like, oh my god, it's probably just really silly, and I'm just like, I'm making this up, I'm thinking this. And he's like, no, that's what will happen. It'll keep happening now. Yeah. And I was like, oh.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks for letting me know at the beginning of all this. And he's like, yeah, it's just things that slowly fall away.
It's
like, if you feel the shift, embrace it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's fucked. The second last time I saw him, because we did a lot of stuff with music and stuff for me. Remember this time I made this vision board in my room about it. He's like, you do 100 mantras every morning. He's like, I'm clearing all this shit out. The first time I saw him, actually, he spoke about be more you. He always speaks. He's like, how's be more you? Yeah. I'm like,
I love him.
And he's like, but he spoke about music as well. He's like, music's gonna be a very good thing for you. He's like, I can see it's good for you. And I'm like, whenever Andrew says something's good for me, I was like, all right. What do you know?
Yeah.
But I remember the last time I saw him, because I saw him quite consistently every 2 weeks. And I felt stuff shift. It was so, like, I remember when the word of the week was just tender. Everyone's like, I just feel tender. Remember, it was just like, I was like, I feel tender, like everything. I just feel vulnerable, like open. I don't know what the fuck's happening. And this second last time I saw him, he's like, all right, this is what you're going to do. He's like, I can clear everything out consciously, but it's your subconscious. He's like, we need to change that now. So I've got this vision board in my room. It's like 100 mantras every single morning. We worked out what my mantra was. He tested it, the percentage we were at. I left and I just started crying out of joy. I never knew. I'd see people cry out of happiness and joy. I remember Mon started doing it at one point. I was like, I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be so happy that I want to cry.
But you're always so happy, bro.
But I know. But I've never known what that felt like. I've never cried because I've been happy. I just started bawling. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, I'm so happy. And I was like, what, tears streaming down my face, playing Blink-182. Like, I just love my life. And then I went to the skate park at Warm Ponds. It was like the biggest in my van. Skate park at Warm Ponds. I just sat there because that's where I lived as a kid. I was just crying, listening to music. Then I think you called me afterwards. I'm like, Mon, I'm just crying on the way home from Andrew. But I was like, holy fucking shit. It took, like, the thing was, I remembered what it was like to believe in myself. And I remembered what it was like when I was 13 and all I did was sit in my room singing my favourite songs, playing my bass guitar and being like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my fucking life. Like, I forgot, and it's all of those years of everything being put on top that I completely forgot. Like, I didn't forget. Well, yeah, I forgot, but it was completely clouded by everything that was on top. I was just like, I didn't realize how little control I had over what everything had already happened until I got the opportunity to see. Because I I saw my other kinesiologist and I was like, I had this weird feeling the last time I saw her. I'm like, I don't think I need to see her again. Not for a while anyway. And Jack West walks into my yoga class the next day and he's like, I saw this kinesiologist last week. And I was like, and my whole body went, you need to see him. Fuck. Well, here we go. Yep. I went in and saw him and then everything, changed. But it just goes to show, like, I often have conversations with people now and they're like, I'm having trouble with this or I'm having trouble with that or I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm like, it's probably not even fucking yours.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not yours.
It's not.
You have to see somebody, whoever that is, whether it's this guy, whether it's somebody else, whoever it is, it's just going to be, it'll probably be dressed, and because a lot of the people that I've spoken to aren't actively doing anything, that's their path and they're doing whatever they need to do, but I'm like, you just have no idea what it could even possibly be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the thing, man, we feel like we have to fix ourselves and do this, but we can't do it without help as well.
No.
But a lot of people try to outsource it to other people to help them as well. It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to participate in your healing and you have to actively seek people who can help you heal that which you cannot heal on your own.
Yeah.
Like you cannot just give yourself brain surgery, you know what I mean? Like sometimes some of this is like spiritual surgery.
It is.
It is. It's like spiritual surgery, and it's important because, like I said before, like I couldn't remember, just in this lifetime, I can't remember what happened the first 14, my formative years. So when you say be more you, I actually don't know who I am as a kid. I don't know if I know who I am now, but I have no idea how I became this way.
Yeah.
All the things that I do, I actually don't know, because I have maybe 5 memories of my childhood. So, you know, I still like myself and some of the characteristics about myself, but then obviously I'm going to keep those because I like those characteristics. But the darker aspects of myself, I'm like, well, where the hell did this come from? And anytime I work with somebody, whether it's in ceremony or just talking to someone, I either it's another garden analogy. It's like the fruits or the roots, you know, like the fruits of the problem is what you can kind of like work on, but you can like go to the roots and actually pull it out from there. So there's been a lot of fruits that's been coming up in my relationships that I see that I need to work on. And I'm trying to trace it back to my roots, but I can't find it because I've got no memory of it.
Yeah.
That's where someone like Andrew can actually help, because it may not even be rooted in this lifetime.
That's
it might be rooted in different lifetimes. And it's almost impossible for you to do that yourself. You know, you do need to go and seek guidance and support and help. And so for me, that's like, that's super important. And again, with another garden analogy, like you said, like you were clouded, you knew what you wanted to do, how you wanted to sing and this and that, but other things came on top. You had a fertile garden, man, and you planted a seed saying, I want to do this with my life and I enjoy it. And then other people planted their seeds and weeds and it just became overgrown, you know? And one, like you said, you did some serious weeding. Like you weed all that shit out. I'm like, oh, this is my garden. This is the fertile garden of my soul, of my mind, of my body, whatever it is. And you maintain that garden. Anytime someone plants a seed, or if you plant a seed yourself of guilt or shame, like I do, like every day I'm like, every morning I wake up, it's like memories. The last dream I have every time I wake up is tormenting me. Because when I wake up, I'm in anxiety and I'm like, all right, I've got to pull this weed out. So let me spend time in pulling that out. All right, cool, that's done. We're back. Okay, now it's seeds of joy, seeds of love, seeds of compassion, abundance.
And I think that's like, when people talk about like self-love and self-healing and whatever, inner work, inner journeys, whatever, it doesn't fucking stop.
It doesn't stop.
Like,
it's not.
Everybody thinks they do one retreat, they do one ceremony, they see one person once, and you're miraculously going to be fucking healed. I have 3,000 years worth of trauma that I gotta fucking move through. I've probably got like another 70 years of, I'm not going to get through that.
No.
But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut the cords where I can, so that if I'm fortunate enough to have children in the future, they'll have shit that will carry over, but a lot of it I'm putting an end to. Like I look at, bless my parents and my grandparents, but I look at all the fucking shit I had to move through with limiting beliefs just from my grandparents. Being like immigrants basically, the way I was brought up and everything they instilled in me, having to like remove all that just so my kids don't have that from this lifetime in their genes. Like it's like, it's work that just doesn't stop, and it really shits me when people try to like, and again, it serves its purpose to like, you know, do whatever you need to do, meditation, breath work, blah, blah, blah. It does. But when it's that one quick fix solve, that mentality of this is the thing that's going to heal me, it's like, yeah, for maybe the morning, then something's going to fucking happen in the day, and you're going to start back at the beginning, if not 10 steps back, even further. Like, it doesn't end. It does not end. It's an everyday thing. And like you said, you wake up every morning and there's a dream that torments you. That process starts all the way back up again. And it's exhausting. It's really fucking tiring. But you get better at it. Like the situations sometimes don't get better, but you get better. You find new ways to cope. You find new mechanisms. You find new alternative routes. Like you find old routes and go, I know how to rip this one out.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna let this
like,
one.
I know this weed. I know this cheeky guy. I know you. I've seen you before, man. I see you making your way back into my garden. Get out of there, man. Get out of there. You know what I mean? But that's true. That's exactly how it is. Like. And we have to keep maintaining the garden, but I feel like the most important part, and I think we're very blessed because we're aware of it, it's not just necessarily the initial feeling, it's the feeling of the feeling. It's the judgment of the feeling. So if I wake up, before I used to wake up and feel anxious, and then I'd be like, feel guilty, and then I'd be like, I feel bad for feeling guilty, and I'd like beat the shit out of myself. Now I wake up, feel anxious, feel guilty, it's like, I see you, guilt. Like, you know, we're not going to do this dance anymore, bro. Like, you know, we're done here, you know, like, let's get out. Whereas before, I would punish myself for feeling bad as well. And so that's like a double whammy. And I think that's what's important. Like, a lot of people, when I speak to them who are really, really suffering, they feel bad for suffering. And that's where the suffering is, you know. And so it's a definite practice to kind of, to do that inner work. And, you know, it doesn't end. For me, it's just the beginning. And I'm just like, I mean, I only just saw Andrew, like, literally, like, 2 weeks ago. And it's not like, whoa, this is a whole nother layer. And I've sat many ceremonies. Like, I've sat with Aya, everything. Basically, most plant medicines I've sat with. And each one has taught me so much. But it's like, with each plant medicine as well, it's like, it doesn't do the work for you.
No.
Like, for me, I always say it's a shortcut home. You have the medicine, it takes you all the way back home to, I feel so good. Like, I have so much self-love and this and that, and you feel good. And it's like, oh, wow. And you're in your mind, like, this is how I need to be. And, you know, this is how life should be. And then it's like, I'm going to be like this forever. And then it's like, nope, right back to the start. And it's like, okay, cool, now walk. You know what I mean? Like, I've shown you where home is, but now you're right back where you started. Now walk. And you're like, and then people, like, you either walk your way home and get lost and then go back in and try and keep finding your way. Some people walk all the way home, and other people don't walk. They just go back in and try and have that shortcut.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that about home. So before I came to this podcast, I was saying to you, I had a subscriber for my channel from Malaysia. She like found me and she's like, I really want to do a Zoom call with you. Would you have 20 minutes? She was this really young 20-year-old. Anyway, she fully came with questions. Like, she wrote down 15 questions. She's like, is it okay if I just ask you some questions? I'd just love to hear your answers. I was like, yeah, sure. These questions were like proper. I was just like, I'm not prepared for this, but okay. But one of the questions she asked, she was like, what are your thoughts on when people say, you're just lost? Like, can you be lost? And I was like, you know what? I think about this question a lot. I don't even think we're actually lost. I think the home thing, you're in the house that is your home. Your home. Yeah. The lights are just turned off. Or there's just shit everywhere. And your job is to actually just clear the shit, which is conditioning, which is patterns, which is other people's like talk and whatever. It's to clear that out of the house, turn the lights on, and you don't actually have to leave. It's not about running away to another place and a destination, because you're always going to have to, changing your physical environment, yes, to a certain degree. But if you can't be sitting in your room at peace and at home with yourself, what makes you think you're going to be able to do that on a beach in Bali?
Exactly.
It's not going to change anything.
Exactly.
So clear the house, make that a home again, feel safe there. No one's going to infiltrate. No one, unless you let them in.
Exactly. And I love that analogy as well, because that just says everything I said before. Like, I tackled all these demons outside of me, like going into the jungle, potentially getting killed, faced all of that. Come home, COVID, locked in a room in Melbourne. Like, I'm probably one of the most blessed people in the world, literally, but I was going to hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what do I got to complain about, man? Locked out, like, I've got money, and I'm sweet. I got food, I got shelter. Like, what the hell am I complaining about? Went to hell because my home, the light wasn't on. And similarly, you know, to create another analogy, it's like, you know, the dark and the light. You know, in that home, you can't add darkness to your home. You can't add darkness to a room. If you want to work with darkness, you have to work with the light.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
That's
Do
it.
you want to take out the darkness? You turn up the light. You want to bring in darkness? You turn down the light. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, we are all home and the light is there, but we've just turned it off.
Yeah.
And whether it's people that have hurt us and we're like, turn off. Another person's hurt us, turn off. Or worse, ourselves have hurt ourselves, which is, you know, what I did, and I turned it right off, and I was in complete darkness. And only now I'm just starting to like, all right, flicker one, and then like seeing Andrew, he's like, dude, you are here, you could be here. I'm like, I don't even know how bright I could get, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, damn, you know, you better get some sunglasses, you know, like, I just want to get wild, man, because that's what we are. Like, if we can turn on our own light and we can, like, you know, shine light into our darkness, illuminate our darkness, and the way we can do that is to actually by speaking about it.
That's it.
Not speaking about it from a place of pain or victim mentality or victimhood. Like, I believe there's 3 characters to every story. There's the victim, there's the villain, and there's the victor. You know? And in my old stories, I used to be the victim. In my most recent story, I was the villain. I painted myself as the villain. But in either case, like, to conquer that story and to add light into that darkness, I need to become the victor of that story, whether I'm the victim or the villain, you know. So, and I think that's important, because a lot of people do play this victim story, and that doesn't add any light into the room. It just, you know, it just keeps more darkness. And so I think it's important for us to, you know, become the victor of our story, you know, become victorious, and, you know, overcome that story and change that narrative into like, wow, this is what I went through and this is who I am, and I'm fucking stoked.
Yeah.
And,
you know?
And that is essentially like liberation and freedom.
Absolutely.
When you free yourself of those chains of being the victim, of, you know, being all like, oh, woe to me, it's like nothing can touch you, because like you're no longer painting yourself as the villain.
Exactly.
It's your story. You get to do whatever the fuck you want with it now.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing. I'm painting myself as the villain, and other people are like, bro, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, you know, and other people might be like, oh yeah, you are, like, but they're seeing it through the lens of their experience and their reality and whatever happened to them. So some people will hear that story and be like, yeah, you are the villain. Other people will hear and be like, nah, dude, like, that's not what happened, or that's not how we see it. And but what's most important is how you see it, and what's most important is how I see it. And that home that you're talking about, like, I've been living in, and the lights have been off, and it's been hard and it's been dark. But now, like, no one can turn that light on but me, because so many people have tried to put my light back on, and I'm like no, that light's not going on. But now it's just like, no, now it's time. Like, I can't live in this darkness anymore, and just turning it on one bit at a time, you know. So I think that's really important. But yeah, like, we're all here to do that work, and I think that shying away from that and shying away from our darkness is actually shying away from who we really are. And I think it's really important to share these stories, like the light and the dark. I remember, sitting in circles and having people share their stories. Like, when people share their darkest stories, like, wow, I learned so much of myself through them when they share and they speak, and I'm like, whoa, like, there are other people that are sharing a similar experience.
I always love, this is the reason why I love storytelling so much. It's why it's been a passion of mine since I was a child, because it's through storytelling that you're seen and you're heard. Like, when I first heard your story, it was like, you could tell me any fucked up thing you've ever done. It doesn't matter, because, like, I see you. I see the kid in you and everything that kid tried to do to just survive. Yeah. So then for me, like, when I see people, like seeing you right now and saying that you at 14, that's where your memory is capped, it's like the little kid in me is like, hey, I see you, it's alright, like, you'll figure it out. Yeah. How I view people is literally like that. Like, the child in me sees the child in you, and he's like, it's okay, you'll get through this, it's cool, don't stress. And
that's beautiful, because that's part of your evolution, and as to how you see yourself as well. That's non-judgment to yourself, because that's how you would view yourself too. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's crucial. You know, we shouldn't have to hide. If we hide, shame is like guilt and shame are those lowest frequency of emotions. If we are ashamed of something that we're done, we're carrying that, and it's just dragging us down. And when we're operating from that frequency, it's only going to produce more of the same. So the only way we can stop producing that is if we elevate that. The only way we can elevate that is through forgiveness and compassion. And I have no idea what happened to me in my childhood. And the crazy thing is like, no matter what has happened or who has done what, I already have compassion and forgiveness for that person. Yeah. Like, you could do anything to me, anyone could do anything to me, and I'll be like, I can understand why you did that. I can understand, you were like this when you were a child, or this happened to you, or you da-da-da-da. But I find it super challenging, or I've been finding it super challenging to do that for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, well, like, dude, like, use the same, logic and the same mentality. It's like, well, nah, like, I am me, so, that's been the hardest part for me. But I'm working on that. And if I can work on that and heal that for myself, then hopefully I can help other people do the same.
You definitely will. You're fucking
Yes, you will.
Oh, cheers, bro.
Well, shit, we covered a lot. See, this is why I didn't send you questions when you're like, what are we going to talk about?
I knew that. Like, I was just like, see, I'm just coming in. Let's just have a jam. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
We'll do this again.
Well, we're definitely going to have you back again.
Yeah, well, I'm super keen, yeah. And I feel like, come in the next 3 months, for me, it's going to be massive. We've got big things happening for Sacred, massive shifts. We've got new products coming out. And myself, personally, I'm really excited about my own healing journey, because I'm seeing Andrew, like, 7 weeks in a row, like, just, like, full, uncapped potential, you know what I mean?
I should actually talk to you at the very beginning and then at the very end.
You should document that, yeah. I'll be levitating on this chair.
Oh my god, we'll both have sunglasses on.
You won't even need these things, man. Don't worry about these lights, bro.
Yeah, just like,
oh, man. But that's another thing, man. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow,
Yes.
So you can't have one without the other.
No.
And so I feel like there's a lot of people, especially in the conscious realm, that are just like, love and light. And they're trying to just focus only on the light. But like I said, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. That's one of the things that I've noticed and realized, like, in the universe that's around us, in this like dimensional realm, like, there is a balance in nature. That's the only thing that I feel is a universal law. Is a universal law of balance. Birth, life, death, day, night. Short, tall, in long, far. Everything depends on each other. And so you cannot have light without the dark.
Yeah.
You cannot have darkness without the light. And so as soon as we can stop just like focusing on the light and just saying this is all this is, and disregarding the darkness, we're always going to be in disharmony, and we're judging the darkness, and that creates more darkness. But the minute we can accept it as one, like the yin and the yang, you know what I mean? The light within the dark within the light, then we can actually know peace, because we can actually come to terms with it. We don't need to really focus on it and stay focused on it and just like create more of it, but we can acknowledge it, recognize it, illuminate it, and bring it into the light and make it all one. I think that's the most important journey for myself, in the next year is to do that. And so, it's been epic to sit here and talk to you guys about it all and share it, and I'd be super keen to keep sharing the journey moving forward for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear it and to see it and to talk to you again about it.
Oh god,
Just to watch it all unfold, I think is the coolest thing. Like, obviously you're part of the video that we did, A Year to Live.
Yes.
And I said it to you, I'm pretty sure I said it to you, but the book that I got you to write it, the little thing, well, you wrote it in it like 4 times. I was like, Dan, man, it's good. Have things you want to do.
Yeah.
But do you know what I love about it is, like, so this book is going to be filled with probably over, 60 people's things that they want to do if they knew they had a year to live. By the end of the year, whether these people realize it or not, just by writing it down and committing to it, by verbalizing it and writing it down and then having to see it when they get posted on our feed, like, that's planting a seed for themselves. So it's going to be so interesting come the end of 2022, looking back at all these answers and what people said, and just seeing, like, did you follow through with that thing? Like, are you living that thing that you said you wanted to do? Because a lot of people's answers, they weren't that complicated. They were like, some people were like, I'm living my truth right now. And I was like, sick. Let's see in a year. How are you going to elevate that?
Yeah.
Like, what more are you going to do to make that just your everyday scenario? And then there were people that like wrote things that were very, very achievable. And they were like, yeah, like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, sick. I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Because that is fucking achievable to do in 6 months, not even a year. You don't need a year to do that. You could start today. So it's just going to be really interesting, which is why this whole series is so sick, because everybody contributes to it in some way. And it's that whole element of just showing people, like, not telling people, but showing people, like, there are limitless possibilities.
Limitless possibilities.
Life is just a limitless possibility.
Exactly.
And you pull the trigger at any point.
We set the limitations
That's
on ourselves. I remember when I finished DJing, I was like driving home one time and I was like, why did I quit? Like, why have I decided to quit? Like, what happened? And I realized that the height of our limitations is in direct proportion to the depth of our desire.
Yeah.
I didn't desire it anymore. And so I'm like, that's it, it's gone. Those people that achieve the highest successes, they have the deepest desire to do it. If they didn't have it, they wouldn't do it. And so I hit my limitation because I reached the depth of my desire. And so having that knowledge and that awareness, it's like, all right, cool. Well, you know, where else can I apply that to in my life? Like, what other things do I really deeply desire? You know, and then I know my limitations as well. The only limitations that we have are the ones that we set upon ourselves. And so I love like maxing out my limitations, like what's possible, let's just give it a go. Like, I have like ridiculous ambitions for things, you know, and I'm always pushing myself to my limits. Like I live right on the edge of my comfort zone always, you know, and I'm always like pushing myself. Just not because I want to achieve so much. It's just like I'm just like, let's see how far we can go with this. I'm an experiment, you know. I'm just experimenting on myself. And so
it's cool because it's like the curiosity that just takes the lead. It's like, let's just get curious about this. And how much like freer is it when you're just like no expectation, just be curious.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like I don't care. Like I don't care if this business becomes like massively successful. I'm going to try and do it. I'm going to give it my best shot and see how far I can go. But I know I will stop when I reach the depth of my desire, and I will not go any further. And yeah, it might reach a certain point, and I might come back down like, no, this is the sweet spot for me. This is where I want to live now, you know, and I might do that. But it's really cool to like, it's better to do that than to just not try at all.
That's it.
You know? And I think one of the things that I said, what did I write actually for my thing? I think I said something like, make peace with my past. I don't know, something like this. I don't know. It was always like, I was in some sad place when I did that thing. I was like, apologize to those that I've hurt, forgive those who have hurt me, or forgive those who have hurt me.
All I remember from yours was like, throw sick parties.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, it was just like, I'm like, man, let's scratch that. I'm like, all right, cool, make peace with my past, throw the sickest cacao party. If I had 1 year to live, man, I'd throw the sickest cacao party because that is one of my biggest dreams. Like with Sacred, however far and wide we take it, one of the biggest goals for me is within the next few years, I actually want to throw a massive global party. So like across maybe 2 or 3 continents, tens of thousands of people. It's like live streamed for like 24 hours. And it's got like the indigenous people coming and speaking about their land. There's ceremony, this and that, and then there's music. And people who come, like all the tickets go towards protecting the rainforest or protecting their land. There's like, you know, it's live streamed, there's donations, this and that. And like our objective is, it's ambitious. Like we want to protect 1 million acres of Amazon rainforest or even rainforest in the Daintree, but virgin rainforest, like untouched rainforest. That's what we want to do. We want to protect 1 million acres of it. And so one of my dreams in this lifetime is to like, all right, cool, I want to throw like the world's biggest party where all of the money goes towards that, and we are all a part of that movement. So imagine we go to that party, you're dancing, you're hearing about culture, there's music, this and that. At the end of it, it's like, you know, 999,999 acres, and it's like, boom, 1 million acres. It's like, wow, we did it, you know, something like that would be absolutely sick. Because I feel like that's the most important thing. Without Mother Nature, like we have our home here inside, but we also have this home too, and we're literally destroying it. And so it's super important for me, you know, as a lover of nature, to preserve that. Like, you know, I want my kids to be able to see an elephant in the wild, you know, or you know, or know what these animals are, but pretty soon they're just all becoming extinct. And so if we're not careful, it'll just be all virtual reality, just seeing them in the metaverse, you know.
I know.
That's not something I want.
No, I want to see the real thing.
I mean, the metaverse does sound pretty cool too, you know what I mean? Like a little avatar just
but
going
we also
in,
want the real deal as well.
We 100% we want the real deal. We don't want to take the goggles off and be like, man, this is like a hectic matrix. So
fuck, put it back on.
Yeah. That's probably what may happen, you know. So that's why I think it's important for us to first and foremost protect this reality, this land that we're on. And that's what we're trying to do with Sacred and cultivate those connections, which is why we throw our parties, which is why we do everything that we do. We're doing everything just to connect everyone back home, back to their center in an organic and natural way that taps them into their purpose, into what they love. And like I said before, if everyone does what they love, then I feel like the world will know peace. So, you know, I love what you guys are doing. I'm loving what I'm doing, and you know, you can see that, and hopefully we inspire other people to do the same.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn fucking right.
Yeah. Sweet.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on, and like, yeah, you'll probably be back on a couple more times.
I'm super keen.
But
all the times.
But yeah, I'm super excited for the year ahead for both Sacred, for you personally, and there's no doubt we'll be crossing over with Be More You and Sacred.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a party soon. Hey?
Yeah.
Be more sacred. Sacred you party. Yeah.
That's cool.
This is great.
I like that. But yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode this week, and we'll see you back here next week.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
Bye.